Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy. We have reached the 14th film in our James Bond retrospective, and it's Roger Moore's last one, which is very sad. It's been an incredible 7 weeks, but we've hit his final one as tenure as James Bond with 1985's A View to a Kill, directed once again by John Glenn. This is the Duran Duran one. This is the one that we've been looking forward to talking about for so long, and we're finally here. We've already had people commenting as well, and this one's live. Not to say that we haven't done a live, retrospective review on these things before, but for the good last few weeks, they've all been pre-recorded, and one of us has been in the live chat chatting with everyone. But we'll be taking your comments tonight, guys. So this is probably still going to be a long one because we always like opening the conversation up to everyone. And already we've had some very mixed opinions in the comments, so do feel free to comment along. We will be having a conversation between us, so we will be checking the comments and we will get to them when we can, but we can't keep clicking onto them every single second one comes in, but rest assured we will get to them. But before we dive into this 80s classic, which I'm very glad to say that I've watched now in my 80s catalogues of films, over to George with the socials.
Absolutely, guys. As Chris said, comment below with the snipe. We'll bring them up on screen at certain moments. We've got our own schedule at the side we're going to fly through. If you're new to the channel, this is obviously our Bond retrospective. If you're not, you'll know we go through it, kind of the Bond formula with our own little spin on it. So you know what the big talking points will be. We're very excited for this one. And if you are new, if you're just big fans of View to a Kill, hit that subscribe button, turn notifications on, because we've got more Bond videos coming for the next 10 Tuesdays in a row. I think we're on number 14 out of 24 before we get to hopefully get to No Time to Die with the COVID cases this week. That being said, if you don't follow us on our social medias, I know a lot of you aren't getting us on socials, but hit us up: Facebook Cinema Savvy, Twitter at cinema_savvy, letterboxd.com/cinema savvy, and we have a link to our TeePublic store in that description below. Of course, we are here talking A View to a Kill. I feel like there should be a really long pause in there, like that shot on the blimp. Like it's the most forced film title conversation ever written in a film. I don't know if there's any film that's ever done it before that bad. It's
on one of my one-liners, but we may as well get it out of the way now. It's who talks like that? It doesn't even make sense as a sentence. It's so random. But yeah, this is one I think, when we talk amongst ourselves, and we obviously know all the other James Bond films that are going to come up in the retrospective, this was the one. And I think this was the one pretty much down to the song alone. Hearing this song all these years. We'll talk about the music later on because we absolutely have to. So I think it was merely down to the song for me that kind of hyped me up for this one. I watched this film for the first time on Sunday, so this was all new to me. I did skim through it again earlier today just to refresh myself with it, so that I actually sound knowledgeable of what I'm talking about in this review. And I'm already reading the comments, and I'm sorry, guys, but I kind of love this one again. Now, I don't think it was as good as, say, Octopussy. I think if you want like just a pure entertaining film that showcases everything about Roger Moore's Bond, then I'd probably go back to Octopussy before I would this one. But yeah, from like all the negative criticisms, Roger Moore's too old, he's this, he's that, the film's crap, it's too comedic or whatever, I didn't get any of that. I don't think it's as sprawling as some James Bond films. There's no like major international travel or wonderful landscapes or anything like that. It's fairly low key. It felt more restrained for a Bond film, but as Roger Moore's last one, I thought it was kind of brilliant. But that's my initial opinion on it. But
no, absolutely. I think View to a Kill is one of them. I'm not going to compare it to The Phantom Menace, but I watched this when I was quite young. I always mention the ITV on TV, and I just remember there being a film, and this was the first ever time I'd seen Christopher Walken in anything, even before Click. And I remember watching this on a Saturday, and I just remember Christopher Walken, the blimp, and him falling into the ocean. Remember nothing else except that, but that has been imprinted in here for a very long time. And I kind of grew up, and then it's like everyone's like, "This is a terrible film. Roger Moore is a terrible James Bond. He's too old." And I remember reading all this as I was growing up. I was like, "Was it that bad?" And then it was on ITV again, and I remember seeing it, and I was probably in my teens. I was like, "This is fine." Got the Blu-ray box set, for the anniversary. Approached them more. It's like, yeah, I see some faults, but and this is the first time I've seen it in 9 years. I want to say, and I've been looking forward to this one, not more than most, but this is right up there in terms of am I going to be an age where I dislike? When you've got films you really like, sometimes you might watch them and worry like, am I going to like this film again after today? Have I hit a certain point in my life or with other things where I'm not going to like this? Because it does happen, but it didn't for me for this, which is the most important thing. It's happened for a few other ones, but yeah, this is a fascinating one, and I think, as always, we're gonna, before we sort of get into the credit scenes, we're gonna actually really quickly talk about the behind the scenes. A lot of the I mean, last time we obviously had the Never Say Never Again stuff, all that, but this one was, I say, relatively trouble free. Just one small incident, the burning down of the 007 stage.
Yeah.
Of course, not this film's fault. This was a Ridley Scott on Legend, and basically they had to reshuffle the scheduling round. That all the last scenes had to be filmed at Pinewoods. And sort of reading into it, it's quite incredible that this film even managed to get its original release date. In absolute truth, you know, they end up filming all the not foreign scenes, all the location stuff first, and coming back to Pinewood at the end. I think it was in the space of about 4 months everything got shuffled round. I don't think you can tell there's production issues watching this. No. I think that's come out relatively okay, and we know maybe modern day it's a lot easier for films to get. I mean, look at the new one of the production issues they've had before COVID, but I think sometimes films, you know, one instant drastically takes it down. But the burning down of a stage, I think they handled it quite well without that something ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were really efficient. I mean, I don't know how long it took them to rebuild, but it seemed like they were pretty much on it straight away, got it done. And I think maybe as well, because the film feels quite low key, maybe they didn't have to do crazy amounts of stuff. Like, say if you had like a massive James Bond film, we've already had a comment here from Nikolai saying that it's almost too low key for him at some point. This just felt more like an action film to me with James Bond in it, like an 80s action film sort of thing, rather than like the huge sprawling James Bond film. So it probably wouldn't have been a problem either way. But yeah, considering, I mean, that could be devastating to any film if that happened, especially like the legacy of that stage beforehand, and just to see it all go. But no, they were on it, and we got a pretty decent film out of it. Well, I think it was a pretty decent film anyway. I'm sure that we're going to have many differing opinions on tonight. Maybe not between us. I think we agree that we both like this one. But that being said, I think, should we just get straight into the film then? Now, usually we don't like to talk about everything within the film because there's a lot to say. But by the end of this, we'll probably have gone through everything because I think it's worth mentioning. And we always start with the pre-credit scene. So we're in Siberia. Bond is investigating well, he's trying to find a distress signal, I think it was, wasn't it? Or it was a chip that 003 had, yeah, who's passed away. And he's gone to retrieve it. The KGB are there trying to recover it as well. And then we get our first action scene. So right off the bat, and I'm not going to talk too much about the music, I'm going to pepper it in, but Barry's score's just incredible, even from this like first scene. And there's the action theme as well. I think the action theme sort of kicks in sort of like numerous tracks on the soundtrack, but it's just collectively called like the action theme, I think it is. And we first get it from this bit. It's fantastic. And then, by God, I got the biggest tonal whiplash from the pre-credit scene. You know where I'm going with this right away. And it's to do with the music. We get a cover of California Girls by the Beach Boys. And it was so random to me. I thought like another tab had come up on my computer and was like playing the song, because the music, the really intense Barry soundtrack just cuts off. We get like this surfing music, and I get it. It's meant to be like fun Roger Moore stuff. And then it just cuts off after like a minute. And then we're back to intense soundtrack. It's so random. So that bit kind of took me out of it. And I guess it might be a nostalgia thing for some people that grew up with that. It's going to be like the Tarzan yell, isn't it? This is my movie's equivalent of the Tarzan yell, was that music. After that, I didn't really have a lasting problem with anything tonally, but they were just right out with it in the opening scene for me on that one.
It's one of those scenes, but I don't think this is one of the better credit sequences, because we love the pre-credit sequence, but my words, can anyone wear a skiing jacket as good as Roger Moore? I mean, you look at that and you think, you know, what an image. There's some really good behind the scenes photos as well, where it's like, it looks like it's a shopping advert. But I believe as well, this is the first ever film to have snowboarding in it as well, which
something like
sounds a bit crazy for the mid 80s. I'd imagine like maybe like 60s, 70s or something. But once again, that's James Bond setting more records for other things to follow. But it's a very weird opening credit sequence, because you go into the approach of this, and also we'll get into the song properly later, won't we? But this opening credit sequence starts, and you are there like, please get to the theme in a really good way, because it's a great theme.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that there because we want to get into that properly later on. But that's also the problem. I think this is the first ever Bond theme that's overshadowed the pre-credit sequence. It's a very brave thing to say. I've never even thought about it before, but it is one of those where what I will say is I love the submarine. Obviously, I know X-Men came decades later and stuff, but it
The
reminds
iceberg
me
submarine, yeah. It's made of polystyrene. It's great.
It's just the fact that there's already someone waiting down here that I was like, this is Roger Moore, isn't it? It's the, you can't see the other Bonds doing that. Even Connery, definitely not Craig and Dalton and some of the others, but maybe a Brosnan. But yeah, submarine in Siberia is just, it's incredible. And it's what you're here for. You want that kind of stuff. And we get to look at this with a new lens. And I think a lot of people maybe thought this would be his last film heading into it. I think after the film, there were no doubts that it would be his final film. But I think, when you look at it as a send-off, and we'll get to a lot of that stuff later on properly, you want some classic Mooreisms in there, if that's even a term. And I think this delivers on that, because the rest of it is very different.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up a comment here, because I think it is a topic. We're going to get onto it more when we talk about Roger Moore himself, which we'll be getting onto in a second, actually. So it's a good jumping off point. Honestly, I would have loved the pre-title sequence if it weren't for Bond having sex with what could easily be his granddaughter. I love the man, but he looks a little bit like an overbaked potato here. That's mean. He is old. And I think this film would have benefited from a younger Bond, certainly in the action scenes for me. There's bits later on with the fire engine where I was watching him do this stuff and thinking, this is a younger man's Bond film, I think. Even the bit with coming down the ladder as well, I thought is a little bit too old here, but it wasn't as wildly distracting as I thought it would be, at least to me. I don't know what that says about me, but I was kind of fine with it. And there are certain moments in this film, I'm jumping all over the place here, but that bit where he climbs down from the flaming building, I think because you've had 7 Bond films and, we've gone through them in all the weeks, we've spent a lot of time with Roger Moore. And I don't know if that scene would have had such a big impact had it not been him. He is like the ultimate action hero in this film for me. And yeah, he is old, but we're getting films coming out recently. We've got another Indiana Jones film coming out. He's going to be way older than Roger Moore was in this film, doing all the crazy stuff that Indiana Jones usually does. So I was mostly fine with it, but I think this was definitely the last one. This was the one where you go, he's got one more in the tank with this one. That's it. We need a new Bond after that. And thankfully they did. I mean, you could make the argument that maybe he could have retired on Octopussy, and maybe that's fair, but I was still fine with this one. It was moving into that new, I think Octopussy was 81. Was it 81?
83.
83. So we were already into the 80s, but I think when you hit that new decade, it's like we as an audience are ready for another Bond. But I was actually kind of fine with him in this one. He still brings the charm. But if the age thing in this film is a problem with you, I can totally see that. I can absolutely see that when you have the Bond girl in it later on. But maybe it was just because that's all anyone ever talks about this film. If you get into the negatives about the film, that is always the first thing that people latch onto. So maybe having that in the back of my mind sort of prepared me more for it than it would have been if I didn't know anything about how old he was compared to the Bond girl before going into this one.
Yeah, the age stuff for this is a really interesting topic, because I think people do go in too much, but obviously certainly for me, I think he wasn't my Bond at the time, right? So I can't sit there and jump onto that as many as others. I think contextually it would have been massive then. And I think one of the things we spoke about last week in Octopussy, which is why I think the film worked so well, is there was an older Bond girl. Not that Maud Adams was even old in absolute truth, but for cinema, for a Bond, it was, not someone that's,
She seemed maturer, didn't she?
Yeah, and I mean, we'll get into the Stacey Sutton later, but Tanya Roberts' mum was younger than not Sean Connery, than Roger Moore in this film, and I've read that about 10 years ago, and it's never not left the system. That's such an insane. That's like the ultimate pub quiz fact, isn't it? What you'd expect from a Roger Moore Bond quiz, and I think when you've been with Roger Moore for 7 films, you start to, we keep calling him Roger, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I always see Roger Moore as Roger Moore more so than James Bond. I don't mean that as a criticism. But, the definitive
like Adam
Bond,
Wester's Batman kind of thing. You see Adam West.
Yeah, that's probably really... Yeah, I don't mean it like he's as comical as Adam West, but I very much see, you could put Adam West Batman next to Christian Bale, and you've got, that's the same character. And that's how he kind of feels in this one next to a Craig or a Dalton. And the age of, I think my problem is more the stunts and the fighting and stuff. Like, we've got a thing mentioned that he doesn't fire a gun in this film, bar the one with the sort of fake bullets. And it's not that that's a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you've got him in scenes, chasing after Grace Jones, obviously it's a stunt double and stuff, but you see this younger, fitter person, and at the same time, it's like, here's Roger, like, slowly trying to get there, and you love it because it's charming, but at the same time, I'm kind of there, like, he doesn't actually get into a physical confrontation with Zorin as well, really, by the ending, and it's like, if you'd had Saul in their prime to go one-on-one with the Great One, that would have been insane, but that Max Zorin would murder Roger Moore, and I don't want to get our channel sued, but it's a good thing there wasn't a sequence on the boat like real life stuff. But the age of, I don't know. I think the timing is right with this film. I think you look at in the mid '80s as well. You've got the action star boom, right? You've got your Arnie, you've got your Stallone, you've got all these coming through every year, and then seeing Roger Moore running around trying to be Bond. So I think I do think it's over attacked, but I think when you can take the seriousness out of this film doesn't feel like it's trying to be too serious. Like, I know everyone loves Frozone. Sorry to bring up that I didn't like it again, but it's that placement, right? If this was suddenly a really serious Bond film and he's 57, I don't think it would have worked. But because it's leaning more towards the charming Roger Moore type stuff, I don't think it's as bad, but it's very noticeable in comparison to the previous ones. Is maybe noticeable is a better term than the other ones, I think.
Yeah, I think it's not so much of a problem for me, but it is evident in the film that he's not doing the stuff. And I think, that is what Nikolai holds against the film. He's just mentioned it here. He's just said you can just so clearly see that he's doing none of it. And I guess I don't have a major problem with it because that's always kind of been a thing with the Bond films to me, is that you always have, if Bond's skiing, you'll have him on like a rear projection in a close-up, and then when it cuts away, that's a professional skier doing all the stuff. So that's been a thing for many of the Bond films pretty much since the beginning. So I guess I don't really have a major problem with it like a lot of other people do. He is older, evidently he is, but it's kind of been a tried and tested thing for me in all the other films.
I think the stunts don't compensate it, that, having him hanging off the edge of a helicopter, not a helicopter, off the blimp, is different to him in the cockpit of a pilot seat. And I think that's where I've kind of approached it. I think some of the stunts they have him do is the stunts a younger man would do. Whereas if you had him doing, like when he's driving the car, that's great because it's like a chilled out, it's half a car gentleman, all that kind of stuff. But when he's there, swinging and holding on and running around, that's when you notice it more. So I think maybe it could be the stunts they chose, because we know with the Bond films as well, and it's what, they've sort of roles reversed over the years, that Bond used to, we want to do this stunt, we'll put it in the next one, but we want to do this stunt. Whereas now it's very much, we come up with the story and then we'll get designs. Whereas now we've got Mission Impossible, and it's like, Tom Cruise, what do you want to do? I want to hang on the side of an airplane. We're going to do it, and then we'll write around it. And I think it's a really fascinating discussion when they've future maybe that the Bond and Mission Impossible's had a role reverse over the last sort of 10, 15 years. And obviously big decisions coming down the line. But certainly in this one, also what's quite mad, I think Tom Cruise is older right now than Roger Moore is. I'm just clicking this in my head. Tom Cruise right now is older than Roger Moore, and he's going to space in a few months to do a film. That's incredible. That's literally just gone in my head. Yeah, I'm trying to like not think of that now. That's insane. How the hell is he still doing stunts that age?
I think the scenes where I noticed it the most were, as I mentioned, like the fire engine scene and the fist fights, definitely. The one where Zorin's men break into Stacey's home and he's kind of fighting them off with the vase and the ashes. Do you remember The Irishman, where you've got Robert De Niro kicking the guy on the curb, and it's like you can clearly tell it's an old man doing it. It was kind of that thing, that the punches are very slow and sluggish, and
it's like he hasn't got a robot. It's like a rock'em sock'em, isn't it?
Yeah. It's fine. I didn't mind it. Just really quickly, we had a comment from Really 007 giving us their blessing on this live review of this incredible film. Been worried sick all week if you don't love it. Well, we love it. It's fine. We love it. Even for all its faults as well. We absolutely love it. So let's talk about one of the allies, because honestly, one of my favorite bits of this film is the dynamic between James Bond and Sir Godfrey Tibbett, who's played by Patrick Macnee. I think he was in the Avengers TV series, one of the many James Bond characters who originally appeared in the Avengers. I love this interplay. Number one, I always like when he meets an ally, and this ally actually sticks around for quite a bit of the film, well, at least like a good chunk of the first act. What I loved about this film as well, and it could be a negative that it's not as sprawling and they don't jump from location to location, but the first act is just grounded at the Royal Ascot, pretty much, isn't it? And you're just there. And I know you've got that new James Bond video game coming out from the developers of Hitman, but that part of there felt the most like a Hitman game to me, where it's just one location. There are so many avenues and places, and like the tranquilizers and the lift, everything that goes down. So I love that environment. But what made it work is just when they infiltrate it, when you've got Godfrey and Bond going into there, and it's this brilliant dynamic how Bond is like the upper class one, and then Godfrey's like his valet, like his dog's body, carrying around all the suitcases, and he's like slapping him around and shit and like cussing him out for like packing the wrong things. I thought it was great, and I really liked their interplay. And I was actually really gutted when Godfrey got killed. I love that scene, by the way, when he takes the car to the car wash and how it's filmed, and you just see Mayday in the car behind him.
Yeah.
I didn't want to see him die. You knew he was going to, because I think all the allies in this film pretty much die, really, don't they? You've got oh god, what's the name of the Chuck Lee? Is it the actor
from Indiana Jones?
From the guy from the flaming shish kebab guy from Indiana Jones. Yeah, he gets offed as well. Like all of the allies get killed in this one. It's a real shame because I love all the allies in this film. I think they were brilliant. But I especially love Godfrey. I think he's probably one of my favorite allies in the series so far, I think.
Yeah, this is it's not a problem with John Glenn because I love John Glenn. In every film we've had so far of John Glenn, like they've killed an ally. I'm not going to talk about future films because I'm not going to say yes or no to that. But when you get in the more ones, like James Bond has a friend, it's like, not for much longer. But I think Godfrey Tippett's one of the ones which I really enjoy because it feels different, that he's kind of upper but trying to be lower class. And the fact that he is both knighted and an MI6 agent, like, what is the story there? How is he a horse trainer? And how did he get the knighthood without anyone knowing it? But one thing I have with this, and I don't know if this is a problem, this goes back to the age conversation. When they're all at Ascot, right, and you've got Godfrey Tippett, you've got James Bond. I think I saw it really excited. It was M's there as well, isn't he? Mm-hmm. And you think of like this is a spy franchise where he's going to spy on like this megalomaniac that we don't know about yet. It just looks like sort of 4 old blokes from a boardroom like going out to Ascot for the day, and they all own horses and stuff. And I think that's where some of the age stuff comes out. I like it, but it feels like oh god, this is a horrible comparison. Like not Roger Moore, like Morgan Freeman, Robert De Niro, they all did that awful like Grandparents film like a year or two ago, trying to be a comedy. Yeah. Las Vegas or something? And it feels like that you've got these like 4 old geezers together on like one adventure to Ascot for a final time. And I think when you go into the approach, this is the last Moore film, it even feels like that as well. But I think it's moments like that where I really like him as a support character. He feels different to the ones we've had. Normally we get, he's a really, really nice guy. He's an active agent. He'll actually be able to fight a 1-1. Godfrey Tippett's kind of like a very sly, like, he's probably going to go. But at the same time, you think that, is he going to do something stupid and get caught? Because he seems a bit, when he's prodding around the stables and stuff and he's poking his head outdoors, it's like, is this building up for something? And it never doesn't. I like that about him, that there's uncertainty about, is he useful or not? I think he's very useful, but him and Roger Moore, I think, are great together. And I think the actor had said he didn't like Bond films much, but he wanted to work with Roger Moore. And I think they may have been friends behind the scenes. I'm not too sure, but yeah. Sort of going back to the Avengers thing, it's incredible that obviously not many. I mean, I've never seen episodes. I know there's an awful '90s remake with the current M. Ralph Fiennes, wasn't he? And Uma Thurman. But it's amazing when you look at these sort of '60s classics, and we're sat here in the mid '80s now with these Bond films, and we're still getting people from. It sounds horrible, not like 20 years ago, but nowadays I think it's a forgotten era of the '60s cinema. I think we speak to people about '60s films, they're all going to say Bond, but then there's things like the Carry On. You have the Avengers, which was a series. I think Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a similar time. There's so many things that people forget about, and it is nice when you see these people pop up down the line, and when you read into a little bit behind the scenes, that they all wanted to be involved on the Bond films, and fair play to them. Also, if they're mates of Roger Moore, you all know that James Bond's going to get you on. If you're mates with them, you'll get onto a Bond film. Don't worry about that. But I think he's one of my favourite allies. So that'd be great. We've actually really spoke about allies as a whole, but in terms of allies, he's kind of like one of my favourites at the moment. It's a very weird topic because you get like outskirt one. Felix Leiter is your obvious one, but you get these outskirt ones. It's kind of like the henchman to the villain. But some films you get one where they're there for the whole film. Some you'll get one where they're there for like 3 scenes. And I think he's just a nice accomplice. It shakes things up a bit without actually shaking up too much.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I guess that one for a couple of scenes is. Sorry, I thought the actor was called Chuckley. That's the name of the character. Yeah, David Yip is the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom guy. I really liked his character as well, because I don't think I've actually seen him in anything outside of Indiana Jones, to be honest. And even in Indiana Jones, he's only in the opening scene and then he's out of it. But Nikolai's dropped us a comment here saying that he feels like his role could have gone to Felix. When is the next film that we see Felix? Is it Casino Royale now? Is it?
I'm not going to say anything.
They get the original actor back, don't they? I remember reading about one of the early ones. He comes back, but yeah, I can't remember which one he comes back in, so that'll be interesting. And then Nikolai's just in a comment here. One thing I would criticize, though, is the entire horse plot. I mean, it gives us a great line from Zorin. Yeah, it does. We'll get into that line later. But aside from that, what was the purpose of it again? I can see that it is kind of fragmented as a film. I think it's like we've got a set piece here. We want to do something at the Royal Ascot, and then it's like, okay, we've got that, and now we want to do something in San Francisco. We want to do something at the Eiffel Tower, and it does kind of feel quite hodgepodge structurally as a film. I think you got the City Hall stuff as well. It's like just lump it all together in a film, but I just like that moment. I like the Bond villains where they are trying to like blend in with upper class high society and they've got something going on in the background. I can totally understand why you would think it's pointless. And we do spend a lot of time at the Royal Ascot stuff. Like it felt like it was almost like the first half of the film. But I quite like that we were grounded there and I got used to the environment. And I was thinking, what would it be like if the whole Bond film was set here and it was just like over a course of a few days and you've just got like Bond trying to outwit this bad guy. It was just something a bit different, you know. And I always keep saying, I always keep going back to Thunderball with this one. That's the one with the swimming. You've got so many where you can just, you know, this is the Royal Ascot one to me. This is the horse racing one.
Over the
it's
blimp?
always going to be that one. Oh, the blimp, yeah. Well, that's only really in it at the end, though, isn't it? I suppose, but the horse bit is just so much of the film that I'm just always going to remember that. And I mean, we haven't seen Bond horse race before and have an action scene on it, so guess what, you've got one with this one. It felt a bit different, but I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning. The whole first act of this film, it did feel very low-key to other things that we've seen Bond do and other locations that he's gone to, and maybe that is a detriment against the film, but to me it was just something a bit different that I hadn't seen in Bond at this point.
Now, this is where I'm kind of torn. This is my biggest problem with the film is that, you know, I love this, but it's mainly for the individuals, the characters. After the horse racing in the stable, because obviously they go to, after Paris, they go to the stables in France, but the horse racing just drops. You have this whole story about Pegasus, all the cloning. Well, we don't know it's cloning yet, but all this kind of stuff, you know, creepy German breeding horses and all that kind of stuff. And
it's nuts.
It just stops. It just stops. As soon as the microchips comes into it, it's just like,
yeah,
no more horses. And not that a James Bond plot should revolve around someone, you know, illegally, you know, dragging up horses. It's not really a James Bond kind of villain, but it is kind of, not that it needs a pair 5, but it just feels very strange. It's very much like we want to show, and this is what I kind of like. I was thinking this the other day. Obviously, the F1 was on Silverstone, and I was kind of like, why haven't we had a James Bond film at a Grand Prix yet? And I was kind of there like, well, actually, what can you do? Like, you can have like an evil villain. And ironically, this was the day before I watched View to a Kill. It's like we can just have like your villain owning an F1 team instead.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't make sense. But the horse racing stuff, you know, I like the whole enigma that, you know, it's a place to find him where we're going to delve into him a little bit from this. But it's just the horse racing. I think once it just stops, it just moves past it too quick. Maybe have some form of payoff with the horses, or just drop the horses and go for this weird, shady IT guy. So I'm not really sure. So what I do like the fact is I mean, they're not being very well as spies, but the fact that it all comes from this microchip at the credit scene, that it's got a Zorin Industries logo on it, and they just want to have a look into this because it matches other stuff. So I do love the idea that they were trying to find out more about him, but just these like 4-year-old geezers staring up at him in the royal box is the most like unspily thing Bond's done. And you know, we'll get to Quantum of Solace, but one of the best scenes from Quantum of Solace is the opera scene. And I know that Mission Impossible eventually then did that better too.
I don't even remember that scene from Quantum of Solace. So
it's one of the few good things about it. And it's kind of like if you're going to go to these big set pieces with so many people there, how do you do it in a way that's going to work and compensate for the film? I just don't know this one, because it feels too drawn out for it just to stop. Yeah, and that's my problem with it, is that shorten it down and move on, great, I think, but making it such a focal point, you know, the fact the whole Paris sequences come of them trying to find out more about, you know, why are the horses the way they are, and it's so much is taken away from. I don't know, maybe I'm just sort of waffling at this point.
No, I think it kind of. I mean, I'm probably going to save that more for when we talk about Max Zorin himself, because I don't know if it's a plot problem with the plot or a problem with Max's character, in that he's kind of all over the place as a villain, and you know, you could say he's all over the place mentally as well, and maybe that's the point of it, but. Or it could be a bit of both, that it is a fault of the plot and how they brought the character into it. But it does feel all over the place, and they try and tie it in as well. There's, you know, a few throwaway sentences there where pertaining to Max's backstory that, you know, in history, in the concentration camps, they were experimenting on pregnant women with steroids, and then the children that were born were kind of mentally deranged, but they were super intelligent, and they bring the steroids into it that way. From the horse stuff, it's like an adrenaline steroid thing they're giving the horses, but we don't really see that, and it's not really a thing with the villain. Now, if it was steroids like a kind of strength thing, and it was more like a physical opposition, there's a moment, for example, with Mayday, where she full on like military presses a guy above her head, and I thought, has she been pumped up with steroids? And I don't know if the film's kind of ambiguous with that, because obviously she's very physically fit and she trains, and she's, you know, very a muscular woman in this film. And I thought, are they just doing like a funny Roger Moore quirky joke in this film that she's just, oh, she's very strong and can lift a guy above her head? Or is that actually related to her character, that she's been juiced up on these like horse steroid things, that she has the power to do that? I get what you mean. It is quite frustrating. I like it just as a set piece, and it's fine because I guess I have sort of more of a casual attitude to the James Bond films, where I can sort of just let stuff wash over me, especially with the Roger Moore films. Maybe I wouldn't, more so with like the modern ones with the Craigs. Maybe I'd be a bit more analytical and like, this doesn't work as a film because it's trying to be a serious film. Whereas this one, if something stupid happens, or if the plot doesn't make sense, or if the villain's completely over the top, which he is in this film, I'm just kind of okay with it. But it is kind of frustrating, I think, structurally as a film. I don't know what. Yeah, and kind of hear what Nikolai says as well. This is more so with Max's character, so we might bring this up again later, that the entire KGB subplot was just really shoehorned in. I agree. It felt like they were just trying to do so many things with his villain character. Like, here's the business tycoon villain, and I'm fine with that. Like, you can have a business tycoon villain, and then there's moments where he's almost like in a boardroom from Spectre, and he's like the megalomaniacal one, and then he's also like the high society, and it's like, pick one. Like, you've got about 3 different villains you could pick here. You've got like a genetically mutated one. There's like so many different components. Pick one. And I don't know if you needed to give him that KGB subplot, because again, it never really comes into it. It's a part of the character's history, but ultimately it doesn't strike me as, you know, with Gogol in For Your Eyes Only, where it was very much a Cold War film, and it was like they were trying to rush in at the end to collect the MacGuffin. I forgot what it was that they were trying to get in that film. That felt right, and I know around the 80s the Cold War stuff was still going on, but it didn't. The plot wasn't surrounded by the KGB stuff. It just felt like, it did feel a bit crowbarred in there. I did have a problem with that, I think.
The Gogol thing's a weird one, because I really love seeing him pop up in a lot of the Bond films, like with the Cold War being such a big deal. He's like obviously we have like M, we've got Moneypenny, we get Q. You kind of had like, General Gogol's popped up. But when it's, you know, the other spy, you know, for the enemy, it's not really, I mean, it's not really our aim, is it? It's more America's, but it's like, we just wanted to get him in here, so we tried to write something. There are 2 scenes of this which I have a problem with. It's, you know, we get the whole backstory with Zorin, you know, ex-KGB, which we'll get to and stuff, when he's just there. And then you get the whole tape stuff as well with Bond, and it's just that you just wanted to put him in so you could say he's been in it. And I think sometimes, not that it ruins a character, but it's just that, you just wanted to put him in there. And I think problems like that, it just not takes out the film, but it's just kind of there like, you just wasted a couple of minutes that we didn't need to see those minutes. They didn't actually do anything for us or for the film. And I'm not even going to say, like, I don't use words like fan service lightly. It's not even that. It's just kind of like we just wanted to put him in. So, yeah, it can take you out of it. And I think in this one, it's just weird. Nicola's right. It's just unnecessary is the best term for it. It just, you know, not that this one is too long, but that's 5 minutes wasted on him. He didn't need to be in this film. When he's needed for the other films, it makes absolute sense, especially last week with Octopussy and, you know, with all the villains we had in that one. So it makes sense. But this one, there's not enough of the Russia stuff. It felt like they were just trying to get that Russian comparison in.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do we want to talk about the Bond girl next? Because I'm looking. There's a lot of set pieces in this film. Actually, we've got Paris, we've got San Francisco. Do we want? I think we should talk about the Bond girls first. We'll talk about the components of the film, then we can go more into our favorite scenes later on because there's so many great scenes in this film. And first on our agenda is Moneypenny. I wasn't aware that this was Lois Maxwell's last James Bond film that she did. I knew that she was probably getting towards the time where she would stop being it, but I expected her to stick around for like the Timothy Dalton ones. Oh, actually, no, age-wise, that wouldn't work, would it, at all? Yeah, I guess I should have predicted that this would be a last one, but I've mentioned on the retrospectives before, so I always love Lois Maxwell in these films. She's just incredible. I've always loved the interplay with James Bond and her. This one felt more of kind of like a low-key send-off to Lois Maxwell, I think. She's not in it loads, which is kind of by the by with Moneypenny. At least in the last few films, she doesn't seem to have been as prominent as she used to be in perhaps some of the earlier ones. And there was no real kind of standout moment with her in this one. I still enjoy seeing her. There's the bit at the start where she's getting all dolled up and she's got her pink hat and she's just going nuts in the stands and just like freaking out. Everyone else is on a mission and she's just loving it. So that was kind of great. But I quite liked, I think it was in Octopussy, wasn't it? I thought that might have been a better send-off where there's like a newer secretary that, and he's like, here's a single rose for you and here's an entire bouquet of roses for you. The new one who's like coming in to work here, but she's not in this one. So, it's back to just Moneypenny on her own. I mean, it's always great to see her, but there's just not really a lot I can talk about her in this one. I think as a final film, and it's kind of with Roger Moore as well, we'll talk about at the very end of our review, sort of his tenure of Bond leaving. Quite a low-key ending, final scene, send-off for the character, I think.
Yeah, I think with Lois Maxwell, I think she's one of those where, I think her and Cubby Broccoli were the last two from Dr. No. I think everyone else had gone at that point. Would have been a couple of behind. I think even most of the producers had gone. Obviously, John Barry's still there and a few others, but I think Lois Maxwell obviously held in high regards. And I don't know the story as to what happened. I think when they knew that Moore was going, it was this polite ending of an era, which we'll get to later. And I think I messaged you the other day. Like I've always seen Bond as 3 eras. You've got era 1, which is Dr. No up till View to a Kill. Then you've got Living Daylights up till Die Another Day. And then you've got Daniel Craig onwards. That's how I've always seen it. Not in terms of story, just in terms of like the filmmaking, maybe is a better term for it. And I think Lois Maxwell, I think because she's always great, she's by far the best Moneypenny of everyone that's come after. No one stands close to her. And I think it's kind of not that it's a sad ending and one off the character, but it feels right that you'd want to recast that. But I think the Bond film did the right thing with it, where they needed to make changes for that next Bond. I think when that Moore's a similar age to Connery, it makes absolutely no issue in that sense of things. But I think it's just one of those characters where, when we do get to the next one, I know you've not seen it yet, you do miss the absence of her from who does come in. And I think it's took them quite a while. And I mean, it's not really a conversation with Naomi Harris, but I don't mind her as a Moneypenny. I know they've tried to get involved a little bit more. But all the other ones are just trying to be carbon copies of Lois Maxwell. I think when you've set such a high standards, I think it's such a hard way to follow, especially when you've done 14 films as well. I think the only person that did more than that was Desmond Llewellyn. But yes, we've got a quick comment from Nikolai as well. She was a brilliant Moneypenny.
Oh, we've lost George for a few seconds. Sorry, you cut out there.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying we'll find out about the recasting next week when we get to bring up. But...
Yeah, I don't know who that is at all, so I'm going in cold to that one. But yeah, I think it's fair to say when you've been with a character for so long as well, right from the beginning, lasting through 3 James Bonds, right? From Connery, Lazenby to Moore, she's stuck around longer than the actual character of James Bond has really throughout all the films. So, she's an absolute foundation really to the films. Not that her character contributes loads to the story, but it was a nice element that she always brought to it, and I always found her performance really believable with that back and forth with James Bond. We've got another Bond girl to throw in there. Only a handful of scenes, but we've got Pola Ivanova, played by Fiona Fullerton, who was actually meant to be, I forget her first name, but Amasova, was that her name, I think, from
Agent Triple X.
The Spy Who Loved Me, right? Yeah, Agent Triple X, that's it. It's just so much easier to say. Why didn't I just say Agent Triple X? I think that would have been a really cool cameo, actually, if they had brought her back. But I don't have a problem with it being just like another woman that Bond has been with. It kind of fleshes out the world a little bit. He's been on many missions. He's ran into a hell of a lot of women, and this is just another one of those. So I quite liked her character. I don't. Do I bring up one of her one-liners now? Because honestly, that was probably one of my favorite ones in the film that made me laugh the most.
No, go for it.
So it's when they're in the hot tub together, because of course, you know, James Bond's got to get someone in a hot tub in this film, and it's where she turns on the bubbles and she says, like, I can't even do the one. She's like, "Bubbles tickled my Tchaikovsky," and it's kind of cringe, but it's great at the same time. I got a laugh out of that. I might be the only one. Yeah, there's not much to say about her really, but that whole segment of the film gets quite a nice payoff, I think, when she's in the car with Gogol and she's like really proud of herself that she's acquired this tape, and then they play and it's like the meditation massage music that plays. I don't know. I quite liked her character, but I think it would have been nice to have a bit more connective tissue maybe if they had have brought back Agent Triple X maybe.
Yeah, I think if they'd have brought her back, I mean, I don't know if she was, I always forget which Beatle she's married to. Is it Ringo Starr?
Yes, I think.
I've got one in 4 chance to get it right. We'll leave it there. But I think she's one of those characters where if she'd have come back, I think that scene would have been completely different. I think they would have probably wrote it better for her, because you wouldn't want to bring her back for it to be a really weird, he's just screwed you over again. So it's a weird one. I'd have been curious. I think somewhere in the parallel universe, in a multiverse maybe, going off what Loki's been doing, there's maybe a sequential James Bond series from 1962 to 85, so maybe there would be a payoff. Nikolai's confirmed it. It's Ringo Starr. Yeah. Thank you for that. I don't know my Beatles history.
But you know, there's a very nice 6-hour Peter Jackson documentary coming out, so maybe you'll get clued up after that one. Maybe
that's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, it's a weird scene. But it's we just want Gogol in the car, don't we? Not that they could have turned around and gone back if they really needed to. But yeah,
it's sad because she was probably shot straight after that for like insubordination and failing the mission or something.
It's like, here's like real 80s Cold War Russia. It's, you know, well, we won't talk about Death of Stalin, but that kind of film is what you'd expect. Moving on though, we have of course Stacey Sutton as well. Now we know that Tanya Roberts passed away early this year.
January 4th, I think, this year.
Yeah, quite a tragic story with what happened on the news. So I want to try and avoid bringing that up because that was weird. The husband stuff. But that being said, Stacey Sutton, I don't want to be too honest, but this is one of my least favorite Bond girls. I'm sorry. I don't just think it's Roger Moore's age. The whole thing's creepy with him. I'm going to say it, but I don't think she's very good as a leading lady, and I don't know if it's the actress's fault. I think it might be more the writing. Like, why are we joining her at work? And why are we spending so much time in her house? It's just so random.
So sorry, I was just reading the comment there. Is that it? Okay, I'm going to be devil's advocate on this one again, because I actually really like her character. I agree. She's not like, you know, she's not an Agent Triple X. She's definitely not a Diana Rigg. You know, that's always going to be the number one. She's certainly not a Vesper when we get to Casino Royale. But, you know, and then we had a comment here as well from David Jones. James! Yeah, there's a lot of that, but it's not as annoying as I expected it to be. I think it's down to her performance. She just felt really sweet to me. She is the damsel character, and, you know, she doesn't really...
An innocent child with a granddad.
No, it's okay. It is weird. The age thing is weird, but it's definitely not as weird as the whole BB stuff from For Your Eyes Only.
Yes, no, I'm with you on that.
Like, that was weird to me, and you know, you fans of For Your Eyes Only can make your arguments that that's the only girl that Bond doesn't get with. It was still weird they entertained the idea of putting that in the film to me. So that's like the weird age difference thing. There is an age difference with this clearly, but I quite liked her character, and I think she plays it well. You know, I think Tanya Roberts in the moments of peril, the lift sequence when it's on fire and she's like screaming, the bit at the end where she's climbing out and he's like, I don't know, he's like, go on, carry on, or whatever he's saying when he's fighting Mayday and she's climbing up. She wasn't that annoying kind of character. I don't even have a problem with Willie Scott in Temple of Doom. That's always the one that people go to as that like screaming, flailing her arms, screaming at the top of her lungs kind of character. We had this discussion in the live chat last week. Yeah, I like it. I really enjoy her character in that film. but I can understand why that might be problematic for some people who want a little bit more from the Bond girl. But when she was in those scenes of peril, I believed it, and I didn't have a problem. I thought she was just kind of really sweet character, and probably not in like the upper echelons of the greatest Bond girls of all time. But I thought she was serviceable for the film, and she didn't irritate me in any way, shape, or form in the film. So I'm going to defend the character of Stacey Sutton, and I'm guessing everyone's probably going to hate on her in the comments as a really weak and boring character. But honestly, didn't have a problem with her. I thought she was fine. And you know what? It's fine to have these kind of films. I'm going to have this when we get on to like our favorite scenes later on, but it's okay to have a damsel in distress in a film. And it seems like most modern films now have completely outlawed that. It's like, oh, no, we can't be doing that. They always have to be capable. But there's certain moments in this film that almost feel like a superhero film to me. And that's fine. It's okay to have that character archetype in a film. And I'm going to get off my soapbox now because I could go more into that. But one of my favorite scenes in this film almost resembles a scene from Superman. And I'm just going to leave it there. You guys probably know which scene I'm going to talk about. It's great. I loved it. I love her character. Well, I tolerated her character. She was fine. I'll bring it down to a fine, a resounding fine. I thought her character
tolerate is probably a politer term. I think one thing I want to ask now, this may be my fault because it was very late on Saturday. How did she get unconscious before they went down the stairs? Like she's like I don't know if she's unconscious. I just don't understand why he's carrying her down the stairs. I feel like I missed something in rewatching.
Maybe it could be like smoke inhalation or something.
Yeah, this is what confused me. I was watching it, and then she was in the elevator with him, and obviously, what happens, and then it's like, well, hold on, why is he carrying her everywhere? I just didn't know. I don't know if I missed something by a couple of seconds, but I just wanted to ask that.
Smoke inhalation, like it could have happened off screen. I'm fine with that. But
also, and it's more into Max Zorin, but bringing her into the final act was also very random. But I mean, when you've got a psychopath, they can do anything really. I don't really care.
It just adds to the tension a bit, doesn't it? And the stakes at the end that Bond's got to save the girl at the end. It's always kind of a part of it, really.
Definitely. I don't know what else I have to say.
I'm sorry, just to bring up Nikolai's, because this will be like the nice little punctuation after Stacey Solomon character. She's one of the lesser Bond girls to me, but she's fine. Yeah, I think that's the word again, isn't it? Fine. I suppose. Too squeamish, but I appreciate the idea of her as a geologist. Just pales in comparison to the next couple. Oh, I'm intrigued for that then, because I don't know who the next couple is.
I do. But the best one's in 2006, so we're still like 7 films away. Let's talk about the villains. How do we want to do this? Do we just get the main event now?
Christopher Walken. Yeah, let's just go in there. We got to, guys. I'm warning you now. There are probably going to be loads of so bad they're good Christopher Walken impressions. It's going to happen. Entertain us. It's not every day we get to talk about a Christopher Walken film, and certainly not going to get to talk about A View to a Kill anytime soon.
This is what I'm thinking. Have we ever spoken about a Walken film on the channel?
Did we do a review on Jungle Book? Did we talk about Christopher Walken as King Louis the Orangutan?
Because I remember watching this cinema, I was like, oh my god, like Christopher Walken's doing the song, and he kind of just said it, and I didn't mind it because Christopher Walken, but he just kind of there like ooby doo, like he's just gone into the recording booth one day, isn't he? But obviously we've spoken about True Romance this year, which has been one of the absolute highlights of cinema this year, is finding out for the first time. But this is it, View to Kill. It's the first everything I saw him. I've still not seen Deer Hunter.
Do it.
This is like the definitive Walken film for me personally. If you look at any word, anything about him, his personal life, his real life, his comedy, he's on a lot of SNL. You look at anything Chris Walken, everything comes together for Max Zorin of Zorin Industries, and he is sensational. I'm really holding off doing. I'm really holding off doing a voice.
Do it. People want it. Look, Nikolai says bring the impressions on. Let's do it.
I was going to do it as an intro, wasn't I? I kind of did a shit imitation to you before we went live. I don't know. I'm going to hand it off to you. I don't know. I don't even know how to approach him. I don't know. Let's approach him by saying who it could have been. Very first. I'm not going to do a David Bowie impression, but when the film was announced with David Bowie playing the villain. One of the only times in my life I'll ever say I'm so glad it wasn't David Bowie. I don't want anyone else to ever be Max Zorin except Christopher Walken. Nobody can do it better, in the immortal words of the Spy Who Loved Me song.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be Bowie, wasn't it? And then Sting, I think, was touted as playing him, and then they eventually settled on Christopher Walken. I always feel bad for like actors who are like that. Actually, no, I shouldn't feel bad for them because he probably got paid a lot of money to be in this film. But how, oh, we wanted this person. Oh, couldn't get that. Oh, okay, you'll have to do then, like third or fourth down the list. You know what I mean? But I can guarantee if Bowie had have done it, you'd have had your Bond main theme by David Bowie. Or if Sting had done it, that had been the Bond main theme as well by Sting or the Police.
I'm glad we got Duran Duran. We'll get to Duran Duran later, but the story and how they got the Bond gig is quite incredible. But I'm scared that one of us wants to do a Zorin impression and we both don't want to actually do it.
No, it's gonna.
It's gonna happen at some point. It's gonna. It's like the one I was thinking of is like intuitive improvisation is the secret of genius. Like,
nice.
It's so hard to do it without shouting it.
It's oh my god, yeah. How do we talk about this character? So, this was probably one of the most intriguing things about this film going into it for me. I wanted to watch it because of the Duran Duran song, because its reputation precedes it, and it's fucking awesome. And Christopher Walken, that was the second thing. That they were like the main two things I wanted to watch this film for, and it didn't disappoint. I will say, he probably wasn't in the film as much as I thought he was going to be. It seems like the second act just kind of forgets him about him a little bit, and he's just kind of not in until the very end. But when he is on screen, he is majestic. The hair, the bleach blonde hair. What is going? Just where do I start? It's got to be the impressions, hasn't it? I mean, Walken is that actor that everyone can attempt an impression at, and his Walkenisms are firing on all cylinders during this entire film. The villain makes no sense. Like as we've already mentioned, he's the offspring of sort of like genetically tampered with pregnant women in concentration camps. That's made him super intelligent but also psychotic. And he's a billionaire business tycoon specializing in microchip industry. He wants to rule the world of microchips and make it a monopoly. And he also juices up horses for some reason. It makes no sense. It's completely over the top, but my God, all of the scenes with it. And you know what? This was another one of my one-liners, but I'm going to say it right now. One of the most Walken lines in the entire film, which I did a social media post about earlier. It's when he's talking to Roger Moore. And I think Moore says, "You like to ride?" He's like, "I'm the happiest in the saddle." And it's just no other actor would say that line like Christopher Walken. He's like, "No, I'm saying it like this. I'm putting a pause in the middle of this sentence, even though there's no point to have a pause there." It's amazing. He does his smile so much as well, like between us. He just seems so happy to be in a James Bond film. Like no one has been happier in the villain role since him. Probably maybe Javier Bardem, but there's not many excited Bondists, and everything about him. I mean, he's got the best one on in the film, which we're not going to say. That's gonna come in, but you just think of him, and it's kind of the perfect amalgamation that on paper would Walken fighting Timothy Dalton be better than Moore? Yes. But you want Walken to be Walken in a Moore film because it's going to work so much better for the film. And it's the amazing bit of, you know, I mentioned the intuitive, I'm not going to try and dig in, but when he's telling the story and, you know, he's got this incredible backstory about how he took over and everything. I can't remember it line flying. I don't want to try and copy it off the words, but everything about him, he's always one of the matches that you're focused on every word he says. And, you know, I think what helps encapsulate it is how silly it is that, you know, we'll talk about Hans Glaub, my breeder, the breeding man. You know, it's like he's born in a lab. Like, we were kind of joking watching it. It's kind of like the Emperor or something out of, like, Rise of Skywalker. Like, it's so fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm trying to imagine, like, loads of baby Christopher Walkens, like, not in a concentration camp, but the whole, like, Nazi experiment, like, you know, you got to think in the 80s, like World War II is still quite raw in a lot of people's memories as well. And you got to think their approach of like, yes, the Nazis were trying to create super babies. And you kind of there, like, someone's like, this would make for a great James Bond film. And then you bring in all this silly ex-KGB stuff as well. Like, because I think when they introduce him, M's like, he is an anti-communist. And they're like, well, he's obviously then a communist as part of the plot. Like, don't let it fool you. But I don't even know how to approach him. I'm just scared I'm going to keep trying to say words I can't pronounce. We've got to do it. There's so many more quotes. We've got so much love for Christopher Walken right now. David Jones says Walken's gold watch scene in Pulp Fiction is hilarious. Absolutely. where? Oh, here we are. Nikolai says one of my favorites is. Oh, hang on, no. Where is it? Sorry, it moved down. There we go. One of my favorite scenes in this film is Zorin and Mayday's kinky sparring session. Yeah, that was weird, but it was like kind of uncomfortable and psychotic, and that's basically who Christopher Walken is in real life as well, uncomfortable and psychotic. That added like a whole dynamic to those two characters, though, that I thought was really intriguing, and it doesn't really have a payoff. She's just kind of along for the ride in many ways. Actually, I think Mayday's character, we'll talk about her in a bit, but she was definitely the most unhinged character in the entire film for me. And indeed, in real life, Grace Jones is, if you've seen any interviews with her, my God, she's a very strange specimen. Oh my God, what else? Christopher Walken scenes.
One of my favorite moments.
No,
it's just when he's giving the speech about the microchips in his Silicon Valley plans.
Yeah.
And his big table is he just throws a bucket of like microchips across the table. Now, in the mid 80s, I'm sure this looks amazing, but probably for us who had to do electronics like GCSE when we were like 12, it's like, why is he just throwing like chips over a table? Mm-hmm. And like, it's just so funny. But again, I think when you've got him here, the fact that his escape plan is to get off in a blimp with his name on the side of it, it's just everything about him is incredible. And even the psychotic, I know that Roger Moore didn't like the scene when he just murders everybody in the mine, except I keep thinking I'm going to call him Scorpion. It's Scarpine. When I'm surprised he made out because he just kills everyone, doesn't care about anyone. And does he say like I can't do a collateral damage? And he says something like that, but I almost tried. It was
so random as well, but it's just I was trying to find the gif of that. Christopher Walken with a machine gun, just like laughing as he's murdering everyone. He's like Scarface in that moment or something. It was so random, but I guess the second Christopher Walken film where he's in a tunnel underground and it's flooded. If you've watched the animated film Ants, there you go, another Christopher Walken film for you right there. One of my favorites. Oh God, like every scene with him is one of my favorite scenes, but it's at the Ascot bit at the start, and he's got this like high-tech computer that helps him with clients who are looking to buy a horse or selective breeding. You can type in the parameters and it will throw up a horse. But he's got some kind of scanner that's like a facial recognition scanner, and it like comes up on the computer like, this is James Bond. He has a license to kill. He has been on all these missions. How he has all this information just on that computer, I don't know. But he's like looking at the computer and just acting like weird as shit in front of Roger Moore, and he's doing all these expressions. He goes like, ooh, like I can't do the expressions. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. He's doing things with his face that's just hilarious. Is like, now, would you be interested in speed or stamina? And then he's like asking him all these questions about, I don't know why. That just made me laugh. Just this computer, like just out of nowhere, and he just has the entire history on James Bond just at his fingertips. I thought that was quite funny. There's a great edit on YouTube as well where someone's dragged out that scene for like 5 minutes where he's just randomly hitting keys on the computer, just like awkward silence between the two. So that's quite fun.
Do you think Max Zorin's spare time, like the people that legit want to buy horses, do you think he invites them in there and asks them those same questions?
Yeah, just speed or stamina is always his opening question to everyone.
Oh, I don't even know where to go from here.
I mean, there's the city.
Well, should we talk about his plan? Should we talk about his plan?
Yes.
Talk about the plan. Right, that might help us. So, he has the microchips in the horses, and he presses a button which the microchips then inject the horses with stamina, and they're in and out of the system before the horses can be checked for match fixing, which we all know it is for steroids. And then in the background to doing that, his master plan is that he is going to drown the rivers or the lakes of one part of the ocean, keep it trapped in a mine for a couple of minutes, to then flood and destroy and do global warming. Like
he's going to create an earthquake, basically, isn't he? And flood Silicon Valley at the same time. Yeah,
flood Silicon Valley, destroy Silicon Valley. It will cease to exist, leading him as the microchip entrepreneur, the only one left in the world. Very similar to Goldfinger, now I'll say that out loud. Leaving him as the remaining one. And the best part of his plan, which probably epitomizes the writing, and I'll take it because it's so stupid. When James Bond is in the mine, that day is today. It's an hour from now. It is the most ridiculous I mean, I know that this in timing, you know, bombs get disposed in 007 this franchise or on one, I don't care, but this villain's master plan that's probably gone on for years, and it's like the 1 hour Roger Moore has left with him, it just happens to be the day it's all going to go to plan. And listen, I'm not going to fault it because it's stupid, but again,
I'm fine.
This has all the ingredients. Exactly, I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
This is all the ingredients for me to want it. And yeah, this is someone that loves Die Another Day. You know, I'm going to take a View to a Kill, and I'm going to raise you. I'll take this. But yeah, we've got old. I think old Roger Moore's a charmer. I've seen a lot of people say in the past that, you know, they wasted Grace Jones, they wasted Zorin. I'm like, have they though? Like, I don't want to see Max Zorin with Daniel Craig. As well as he could probably do scenes with him, as well as he could do scenes of Dalton, he works for Roger Moore so well because he's so unpredictable. He's so over the top. I think he'd stand out like a sore thumb. I mean, his hairline would stand out anyway, but anything like that in any of the other Bond films, I don't think he'd work. I think Moore is the only Bond. Even Brosnan, I don't think could pull off being with Walken in Absolute Truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know they did it in a PS2 game, but if someone like Brosnan, you want like a Willem Dafoe or something as your elite tier villain, having a Max Zorin for the Roger Moore Bond, I'll take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think it works, and Walken's always one of those actors. Not to say he can't do serious stuff. I mean, he's one of those actors that seems like he sort of peaked in the 70s, and then sort of, you know, dramatically as an actor, I would say in the 70s. You could say the same. Oh no, Pacino was probably like after the 90s. Then you hit like the late 2000s, and then he started doing the comedy stuff. But Christopher Walken as an actor is just so weird and wonderful that it does need a Roger Moore to go up against, I think, and I think the two balance each other quite nicely. I was going to bring up another scene. I love that he goes out laughing as well. He's like the Joker at the end, isn't he, on that bridge? Like he's trying to like pull himself up, and because he's just completely bonkers, he's just like laughing and grinning. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a nice touch for the character. But we'll talk about that scene probably towards the end because we definitely need to talk about the German guy as well. It's like a Looney Tunes cartoon, just not one from Space Jam 2, thankfully. Let's talk about Mayday then, because Zorin and her, I think they even say like they go everywhere together, like they're kind of inseparable. This was another thing that was kind of so I knew that Grace Jones was playing, well, I didn't know what character she was playing, but I knew that she was in this film in some way, and she was always the character that everyone keeps talking about in this film. She was just nuts in this film, but I quite liked her character. She was memorable, and I like the journey that her character goes on, because, you know, physically she's very imposing. I think she was actually dating Dolph Lundgren at the time, which is what got him the gig as the extra in that one scene that you can see. That must have been Lundgren's first film as well, wasn't it? Did we say when
it was?
Credits?
I believe someone no-showed set, and he just happened to be there that day, and that's how he got the role. Maybe he battered someone or did something before. I don't know. Dolph Lundgren's better than that, but it's like I was watching that. I was like, Dad, that's Dolph Lundgren there. And he doesn't look like Dolph Lundgren. Like, he's still ripped and everything, but I think because he's so young and it's pre-Rocky 4, sorry, it's one of them where it's like the pretty Drago Dolph Lundgren. And I'm not saying he's great, but it kind of makes sense that he's with Grace Jones. I don't know why. It looks like some kind of like within View to Kill, like some weird experiment between them. It's like two specimens, basically. That's the whole point of it, and that's why Zorin works with her as well. They're so weird, and someone mentioned their like weird kinky fight earlier. It's weird, and also like this isn't a criticism. If he's this like super like the best spy the KGB ever had, who's gone rogue, why does he need a bodyguard? I don't care, but it's so random. Like we never really get to see him fight. I mean, we get to see him do stuff, but they use him quite sparingly, and they leave all the muscle for Grace Jones, which I think compensates. I think, you know, if you were going to look at this film definitively, like if we were to take all the scenes out of it, all the fun like go in. Sort of like it would come out tomorrow, I think you'd probably say that Grace Jones is the best thing in this film, being absolutely serious. But at the same time, because I don't know much about her, like I think this was quite a big deal at the time for Grace Jones to be in it. I think she was quite a big name. I think
she was a singer. Was she a singer? I think, wasn't she? Predominantly, was she?
I think so. I'm not too aware of it, but what I can tell you is that Roger Moore and her did not get on. And someone mentioned a comment about a dildo earlier, which is really weird. I don't know this story. So whoever knows that story, please comment it. But from all I know is that I think he wrote a couple of books. In one of them, he said, "I was always told if you have nothing nice to say about somebody, don't say it. So I won't be speaking about Grace Jones," which was like Roger Moore going in all quite
it's a classy
sassy.
way of saying it, though. Like, would you expect anything else from Roger Moore, right?
Yeah, exactly. But apparently she said that she enjoyed working with him. So Nicola knows the story. I think he's going to comment it.
Yeah, he's mentioned a comment here as well, and this is kind of the scene that I go to as well. The scene of Mayday sleeping with Bond, big uff. It's just
weird.
So random. Yeah, it's weird, and like
he's waiting for her as well.
Yeah, like Christopher Walken's kind of in on it. Well, hopefully not in on it. That oh boy, that's a menage a trois. That was a Freudian slip right there. But he's in the corridor with Grace Jones, and he's like, "Go and take care of Bond." And then she just goes in with the agenda of sleeping with him, but it's not even like to kill him or to anything like that. Because before that, you had the bit where Bond is speaking to Stacey, and then she interjects and says that, was it like, you'll be taken care of or something? He's like, oh, really? You'll see to that personally, will you? So it follows up from that, but it's just so random. They have that like romantic connection briefly, but then she just lets him go. She doesn't, and she knows that he's onto her at that point. Like they've already done that part, haven't they? Is the Paris stuff after?
Yes, the Paris is way before. Yeah, Paris is like the second set piece. It's really weird because they make out like no one could clock who each other are, and they make it happen like I know it's meant to be months after or days after. But the whole Paris stuff's weird because you'd expect them. I mean, if she's so good at being a sort of a henchman, which she is, it took her quite a while to clock it because she's clearly got some like unfiltered strength because she kills a man with a fishing stick butterfly.
Fly casting, wasn't it? As he says to Christopher Walken. I love how he just gives the game away as well when he's talking to Christopher Walken in that scene. He could play it subtle, like he doesn't know anything, and he just throws it straight in there, doesn't he? Yeah, it was the butterfly scene. I wanted to talk about that. We'll talk about it later with Paris, but the aubergine character is aubergine. Was that his name? The most stereotypical French guy. He's like, oh, we should add this butterfly to our collection, no? He just dies.
It's the way he dies. He like bigs himself up for the biggest announcement ever. And it's like, what's it like? I will tell you where they're going to be. Like it's so like it's like it's like oh, we're at the Eiffel Tower. Let's just like intensify French stereotypes 2000s, and it's so weird. I want to say it makes a great scene, but Roger Moore cannot keep up with her at all. Like you can tell that man is absolutely like shitting it running up the Eiffel Tower, which does lead to one of the best stunts in Bond. I will add to that as well, which is probably the main reason actually went to Paris in the first place. Was just to do the Eiffel Tower stuff, but it's a weird one with her and him, and then I just don't buy their relationship, and I get why at the end that Max Zorin betrayed me. I love stuff like that. I know it doesn't happen too much in Bond. I think when it does happen, you do get sometimes it can be really boring. I think Mayday's got such a good payoff to all that story as well that the way in which she goes out, she locks eyes with him, the bomb goes off, and you basically see it as well. The whole Mayday character, I think when you look at it full circle, it's great. But I don't want to say we don't get enough of her. We don't get too much of her either. I think they use her for the perfect amount of time throughout.
Yeah, I think we get just enough of her, and like she gets arguably one of the biggest set pieces in the film, which is the Eiffel Tower base jump. That was all over the Duran Duran music video, so I knew that they were going to go to the Eiffel Tower at some point. She gets the big pivotal moment there. I do like where her character kind of ends, and that she does have that change of heart, and she sacrifices herself. The bit where he's like, "Jump, Mayday," and she's like, "I need to keep it going because of the brake on the cart," and then she goes up, "Get Zorin for me." I love that. So she's more of an intriguing character. Like, I want to know more about her because she is just so strange and off the wall, and a very odd couple pairing with Christopher Walken's character as the villain. It's going back to that sort of like kinky sparring scene. It's where she's almost like a rabid animal, and she's like snarling and like trying to bite him and everything. And you just kind of have that like weird, unhinged kind of feel to her character pretty much the entire film. Like she could just, go off the rails at any point. Literally, at the end, she goes off the rails. But no, I like to. I think she's probably up there in terms of henchmen or henchwomen. I would say she's definitely memorable in the film. I'll give her that. Just weird. And that's why I kind of love this film. She's just weird, and it's quite an unnatural pairing between the two characters. But for some reason, it works, as is often the case with Bond. Make it just weird enough, and memorable enough, and it kind of works for itself. So, and I think it helps that she does get those sort of like major scenes as well, especially the Eiffel Tower one, which I think just kind of cements a character from the off, really.
Yeah, what I kind of want to add as well, I think, we look at this obviously in 2021, like almost 40 years later, but I'm curious about what the reaction would have been to Grace Jones at the time. I should have actually researched this maybe, but certainly as the franchise has moved on, I think she set such a high standard where, you look at the definitive henchmen, right? You've got Odd Job first, then you've got Jaws, and then probably Mayday.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know you haven't seen a couple of other ones coming up. I know a lot of people are talking about Genie earlier, who is going to be a very fascinating discussion in a couple of weeks. And after that, there's not really many. And I think, she's on the pedestal right up there. And I think as time's gone by, maybe some people say this film hasn't aged well or the film has aged better. I think contextually, this film probably looks worse in 85 than it does in 2021. I think it's easy to catalogue this with a lot of those 80s films that are silly but are fun. Mm-hmm. And I think she's an absolute standout from this. I don't know if she was in any other big films maybe that have been after, but getting to be in a Bond film in the mid 80s is quite an achievement. A couple of comments about the Roger Moore stuff. Hennock saying that Moore was annoyed about how loud the music was being played, and Nikolai during the scene, especially together, she had a big black dildo in pictures. I could just imagine a traumatized Roger Moore there on either of those. But loud music's being played between the walls in trailers and stuff. I'd imagine that would cause some problems. And I'm not going to get into Beyonce's politics, but
I'm just imagining Bond's one-liner, which I'm not going to say now because that's definitely going to come up later. But if that's true with that story of what she had under the covers, that just makes that line that Bond has straight afterwards all the more awesome for me.
I don't even know how to sort of. I forgot. I had a good point to say, but I've completely forgotten it. I'm gone off track. Do we need to talk about a couple of the other? It's like the henchwoman's other hench people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've got a whole set in here. Let's talk about Scarpine. The guy with the giant scar on his face. I don't know if you clocked it with the name Scarpine. I didn't know his name before I went on Wikipedia. This is a character I kind of like, but we don't really get an awful lot of time with. I just like that he is just like at the start he's introduced as almost like a chaperone, like a waiter. Then he was like, no, this guy, this is like the only person, one of two people that Max Zorin didn't kill. So he's obviously loyal to a point, but I enjoy what we have of him. He's a bit different. He's sinister. I did think Zorin should have killed him when he got onto that tram, when he was killing all the staff. Mm. He was laughing and sitting down. I was like, why don't you just headshot him? That would make more sense. Just leave you and your scientist dad together. But
I honestly don't remember much about this character at all. Is this the guy who throws the other Russian guy into the chipper, the turbine? Does he get him to do that? Or yeah, I mean, I like that scene.
He does a lot of his dirty work.
Yeah, I think I remember it more for that moment because that moment was quite grim to watch, actually. I did like that scene, jumping all around here, but that bit, I always love when Bond's in a situation where I'm watching the film, I genuinely don't know how he's going to get out of this situation. And that bit with the turbine, when it's right there, I didn't have a clue how he's going to get out of it. But then when the guy gets, it's going to happen. It's such a Bond thing to do. And did you say that Roger Moore had a problem with it in terms of the violence? Was that more so from the shooting at the end, or was that this scene included?
No, I think he said that Roger Moore. I think he said a lot in the past about the film, but the main problem is when Zorin starts shooting and murdering and massacring everyone.
Right.
And apparently, Roger Moore said it's not really his kind. I don't know that line for line, but it was something on. I was he criticized that scene, saying that's not really what my Bond films are about, or what we'd say in Bond. I know you've not seen it yet, but sign of things to come. License to Kill rated 15 came out 4 years later, saying that.
Okay.
So
yeah,
let's say that there. And again, not to diss on Sir Roger, we love him, but when you're making comments like that in the middle of the 80s action era, I think that's I know it's a different generations of cinema, but I think that's when that times. I mean, he said that retrospectively years after, but I think that's when that time's up, surely, isn't it? When
to
we
talk can't keep living the nice campy glory days. We got to move with the times of cinema, and they were moving, especially in the 80s, they were moving to new places. But yeah, the bit where that guy gets thrown into the turbine, I thought they were just going to lump him in, and you know what happened. You can put two and two together. What happened when he got thrown out the hole? But you see him in there, and there's all blood in the water as he gets minced up like that. That was pretty graphic.
The air compression as well was ricketing as well, and
yeah, And then you just
So
see
it's
it
quite
like go
grim.
back to normal. Like I thought that was a really well done scene, but it did kind of shock me that you actually saw him in there. You don't see him like get minced into pieces or anything. It's not a Saw movie, but with the blood in the water, it was still quite a striking image, I think, for a Bond film.
I'm trying my hardest not to talk about License to Kill at the moment because I've not seen it. But everyone, no one comment License to Kill because I think some of them might think about it. But in terms of imagery from moments like that, I'm just going to say again, it's like a sign of what's to come, and that's. I think this is some of this. I mean, this is the John Glenn thing I was kind of saying. I think it was before We Hit Live that he has this sense of maturity where I think he wants to move on, and I think we'll talk about Roger at the end again, but. I think he needs the Bond to move on for him to make the films he really wants to make. And that sounds a bit petty, but there's sort of, I think we'll know that in the next couple of weeks for sure. But do we also want to talk about...
Yes, I do want to talk about this guy.
Hans Glaub.
Yes.
I keep meaning to say Hans Lander. It's not Colonel Hans Lander.
It's like Hans Gruber. They're all the Hans.
Yeah. Zimmer, he's composing the next Bond film. Oh man, I've seen memes of Hans Glaub for many years on Twitter before I even knew really he was a meme. It's the eyepiece, the proper like penguin stretched eye, glass open. It's the way he shouts like raiding at the bar, and yet he's kind of the surrogate father to Max Zorin. And
it's quite a sweet relationship, isn't it?
I think you said it to me, didn't you? He has like a Looney Tunes death as well, which I think makes it even more glorious. Yeah. Like the whole, it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen a film called Kung Pao. It would have come out like 15, 20 years ago. It was terrible. Like it was like a piss take of 70s Hong Kong films. And one of my friends watched them when we were kids, and it was just an awful piss take, and it was so like cartoonish, overemphasizing words, all that kind of stuff, and. This guy is perfect. Like from the, I mean, I know I'm jumping in, but when they kill Zorin, the fact it's not even the main villain, he's just like trying to shoot them, like he's not even aiming. He's trying to kill them, and there's a whole stick of dynamite, and it's just incredible. I absolutely love him, and I'm going to really quickly bring up this comment by Nikolai. As a German, this guy is just funny. The biggest stereotype of an old German Nazi scientist.
Yeah,
exactly.
Love it. I love it. I'm sorry, Nikolai. I love it. Like the stereotype just works for me in this film, especially. Oh God, yeah. Just right from the off, he's like, "I'm his breeding consultante" or something. Like I can't remember what he says. And yeah, it's just at the end, it kind of you're always aware of him. He's always there, and he's kind of like just like the creepy German scientist guy. But then at the end, I felt really bad for him, and it was like a really sweet relationship. He's a horrible monster, but you know, like when he sees his surrogate son, essentially his creation, almost just fall to his death, he's like, "Max, no!" And then he's just really sad and goes on a revenge mission against Bond. And he gets like the most overly sized cartoonish stick of dynamite I've ever seen in a film. Lights it, and he's hanging out there, the blimp, just wafting it around. It was like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, and I loved it. And then obviously, it's going to go off. I was actually disappointed about the size of the explosion. I was thinking like the Hindenburg kind of explosion that was going to go up, but it's just kind of like it's just like a balloon popping, isn't it? And then but it was so great. It was a really nice little extra tidbit added on for the final climax. Like you think the villains beat, that's it, done. And I guess that's like always the Bond thing, isn't it? There's always like the henchmen that they then have to beat afterwards. But usually like there's a lull in the film, like it's resolving, and then there's another little action beat at the end. So it was still like contained within the same action scene, but I just thought it was a really nice, it was a good character moment. He's going to be memorable to me now from that one scene alone at the end. Loved it. I thought it was a really it's weird dynamic, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
When they're like faffing around, like they're trying to grab it to throw it out as well. It's just so random. It works so perfectly at the same time. And then you're right. It's like Looney Tunes, like through and through. But
he's just waiting for his perfect opportunity to lob this stick of dynamite down. He's like falling over and shit in the blimp. It's great.
It's when you think he's died as well before, like when they have the first bit of action on the bridge when he flies back like 20 yards and just hits the wall. I was expecting. You know, when you're not seeing why, you always forget how they go. And I was expecting him to be dead. You know, that's in rage that bad. I'd have been Chris. I'm not going to criticize it all over, but I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if Bond would have killed him and Zorin saw it. Because the whole I don't know if Zorin. I think Zorin does care about him because he's obviously kept him in to breed horses and stuff. But the whole thing with him is just amazing. It's the glass, I think, right? It has like you've just almost died. Your blimp is almost destroyed, and the first thing he does is grab his a glass bit and just shove it straight back into his eye to then try and carry on what's happening. It's amazing, and also it's what we always talk about with Bond, right? With the Bond films, you need to go out in a blaze of glory. You know, I spoke about who was it in Spy Love Me? Stromberg.
Yes, yeah.
And, you know, he got shot and it was so boring. He dropped dead in a salad. And you want those classic, oh, this is the one, this is how he dies, that's how he dies. It's like, oh, salad man. But what a way to go. You know, for all of them, I don't think anyone has, you look at Mayday, mine explosion, and you kind of see it. It reminds me of like Richard Grant in Episode 9. You just see the explosion of them, like cut shot just before. You've got the blimp explosion, and you've got, Max Zorin being falling off the Golden Gate Bridge, which is it's a very weird stunt. I don't think you could do that in modern Bond films. I think it was perfect again to be in the Moira, having James Bond running up the side of the Golden, well, not running, but hanging off the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a very 80s type thing, isn't it?
And the poster as well. Like, that's such a striking image on the poster too. We've got a couple of other characters to rattle through as well, because we want to be completionists about this. We didn't get cussed out. There were no negativity. But when we did Man with the Golden Gun, we've got to talk about the flying plane in that one. So we try and cover all bases in the reviews now, like every single avenue. There's a couple of other characters we need to talk about. We've got the character of Jenny Flex and Pan Ho. I don't know how much I can talk about these two people in all this, because they're barely in the film, but we wanted to give them a shout out at least. And the most interesting thing about Jenny Flex is probably more so the other film that the actress was in. So Alison Doody, who plays Dr. Elsa Snyder in The Last Crusade. I think someone told me about that last week, but I completely forgot about it by the time I got around to this film. We had like a really cool Indiana Jones segue in the live chat last week, which was great. And then, they were saying, well, you've got the guy from Temple of Doom in this one and also Elsa Snyder. So that was kind of convenient timing with that, really. She's just there. And the same with, Pan Ho as well, just their characters that are in the film. I have nothing else to say about them. They're just there.
She's there for Indiana Jones. I think she's the youngest. Well, when she was cast, it was the youngest Bond girl. She was 18, but it's not really a Bond girl because there's not really an interaction of that kind. She's in like 2 or 3 scenes, and then she's also just happened to have drowned, which helps turn Grace Jones good. So just wanted to have a shout out. Dolph Lundgren as well. We already spoke about again. Really weird seeing pop up in a Bond film. But we've got a.
He could have been a henchman. Like, I know this was before. Actually, was it the same year as Rocky?
85. Was it just before? It was 86. Rocky 4.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if he'd have done that first, like, he could have been the henchman right there.
Maybe Stallone. Maybe Stallone's a massive Bond fan and thought, "Who is this unit in the corner of the screen?" And that's how it happens. Who knows? Maybe Stallone should have been in Bond. We've got a comment from Henok. Let's not forget the theme tune by Duran Duran.
Is it time?
It's time, isn't it? It's time. Who's going to dance into the fire? This is a shadow of the doubt. Go on. Let's start off with a fact. This is the only Bond song to get #1 in America, right? That's something worth mentioning, which is humongous. And this is the Bond film where a lot of people that don't watch James Bond will hear a song and be like, "Wait, that was made for a James Bond film." Like, too fucking right, it was. A great Bond film and an even greater actual title sequence with it. If anyone's ever bored, go on. There's a website called Thunderballs that do those behind-the-scenes photos of Bond. Go look at the behind-the-scenes for the View to a Kill music video photo shoot because it's before they've got all the color changes and it looks hilarious. But this is one of the best songs to sing to on the motorway, as many people probably have and will do. It's an absolute tune. When it's the summer, as hot as it is right now, it is absolutely roasting. Slapping this on with the windows down, driving through is a perfect song to be doing it to. I did it before we went live tonight. I was driving back with a drink from somewhere, and I don't even know how to say this is top 3 Bond themes. Top 3 minute without even thinking about it. Top 3.
This is in my top 3 as well. I'm not going to give it away because we might be doing a
Yeah.
ranking video after all is said and done, and I don't want to give away my top picks. I think I'm actually may have mentioned it either on or off stream. I can't remember which my favorite one is, but this is up there. Oh my god, how do you even start talking about this? One thing I will say about the title sequence, you know how when we talk about the editing and how great the editing is, and I think we always go back to From Russia with Love with the tarantula, where the music is like synced with it. We've had a higher bidder with this one. The song kicks in, title sequence, meeting you with a view to a kill, and it's like synced to the lyrics when it comes up on screen. It's almost like a karaoke. I thought that was great, and that just got me even hyped even more that the song was actually playing. When that came up, I was like, this is incredible. This has always been one of my favorite songs, even way before I'd even knew it was in a Bond film, before I even knew anything about this as a Bond film. It was always one of my favorite songs. I love the 80s. Not just rock, but pretty much every genre that came out of the 80s, especially pop, and Duran Duran are probably one of the biggest bands in the 80s pop scene. Love loads of their stuff. And the story about how they actually got the gig for this is pretty fun as well. This is according to Wikipedia. I don't know how true this is, but apparently the bassist, John Taylor, who was a lifelong Bond fan, approached Broccoli. I think they were at a party or something, and he was drunk at the time. And he said, when are you going to get someone decent to do one of your theme songs? And obviously that struck a chord with Broccoli, and, you know, they were doing the song. This is incredible. This is everything you want from a Bond song. And as you're right, it is one of the best driving songs. I've been spamming it in my car like the last 2 weeks in preparation, knowing that in 2 weeks' time we'd get to this film. It's amazing. It was nominated for a Golden Globe. It's the, you know, I always talk about like the hype, man, the hype music. Yeah. I don't think there's a better one that hypes you up as much as this song. As soon as it kicks in, it was like the whole, like rubbing your hands together, like, yeah, this is what it's all about. A very depressing fact, though, that I've got to end on. Didn't quite make it to number 1 in the UK.
I might know this.
Number 2.
Oh, I was going to give it. You know, I don't know much about music, right? So my parents obviously love 80s, massive Aha fans, which we get to talk about next week. And then I believe they said that this was one of the last songs they worked on before the original Duran Duran lineup split up.
Oh, okay.
That said. I don't know the history.
So it's like the crowning jewel. To me, this is the crowning jewel in Duran Duran's career as far as I'm concerned with this song. But this is the depressing thing. I'm so sorry to say this. It reached number 2 in the UK, which was the highest position that any Bond song had got in the UK charts.
Oh, I know what's coming next, unfortunately.
One other song.
But the other song, you can have an asterisk and say, I think in 2015, did it include streaming numbers? I'm going to keep that as my own asterisk.
Maybe. We'd have to do some number crunching on that one. But yeah, Writings on the Wall is the only Bond song to reach number 1. Let that sink in a moment. But yeah, I mean, what else? I can't talk highly enough about this song, in all honesty. It's just amazing.
One of my favorite of every single Bond theme that's ever been done on screen. One of my favorite ever bits is the silhouette of Roger Moore where he turns with the gun, and then you get that. It's like
radar.
And then you get the radar in sync, and it's so well done. It's honestly that. And the things with the Bond themes, like, you know, when you've got a song this good, you can have terrible credits, no one would care. But this has a great opening sequence, and I'm gonna upset some people in the chat. I agree with Duran Duran's bassist. I think a lot of the race themes have been crap. On my best of Bond playlist, it goes straight from what's his name, Paul McCartney, straight through to View to a Kill.
Yeah,
that's 12 years. That's a lot of Bond films. Maybe I know everyone aspired of me. I said that in my video. I didn't live it that much, but I'm with him there. You've got balls to say that to Broccoli, but guess what? He gave you the song, and you did your best. And I think that probably kickstarted the let's get more and more trendy people. I'm going to say that would have kickstarted big time, especially when you look at 87 going straight to Aha. It was a big one as well.
They always go with whoever's hot at the moment, don't they? And like, you know, Duran Duran were big, Aha were big in the 80s pop scene as well. And we're seeing it recently as well with Billie Eilish and, you know, Sam Smith as well. Like, they always tend to get who's big at the time, which I'm totally fine with. And yeah, they just turned in a great song. It is very... I can see where people think that this should have been like the first Dalton one, for example, just in terms of like the 80s aesthetic, that it's a bit more hard hitting, it's a bit more action orientated, and even down to the song as well. Like, you think like about the last few Roger Moore themes that have come out with the film, and they've all been like the very nice, relaxing ballad kind of ones. You know, you think For Your Eyes Only, All Time High, Nobody Does It Better. when I think of Roger Moore's Bond, I think of those songs more, or Moonraker, for example, the very sort of like, and it ties in with his romantic side, I think, as James Bond. This is just like 80s pop soft rock. Like, I don't attach that to Roger Moore, but obviously, clearly it is. And sort of like tying in with the music, we need to talk about the Barry score as well. This is probably one of my favorite Barry scores that he's done. And I feel like I say that every single film that we do that Barry has scored, but I genuinely mean it with this one. Every single time you get the main title track worked into it, you know, with the orchestra, played on a flute, I think it is, and it's just really slowed down, and it's just great how you can take a song that the main one that I know, the Duran Duran opener, and just how a song can be reworked and slow, not mess around with the tempo and the instrumentation. It just completely, it transforms the song into something completely different. And every time that fanfare kicks in, it's just it's so good. So I love that. And not just that as well, but the action theme as well. I'm going to call it the action theme. I think it's used in the tracks Snow Job, He's Dangerous, and Golden Gate Fight, but it's like the same bit that repeats throughout those tracks, but it's called the action theme. There's like this wailing guitar, and it's just so awesome. It's the kind of guitar solo, when I hear one, like a really just pitch perfect guitar solo, when a guitar's just wailing, you just close your eyes and you're just like, oh, that's so awesome. And it was great. So I love that. It reminded me of, and actually I think it says here that he reworked the On Her Majesty's Secret Service main theme slightly, and this is kind of like a variation on that theme from that film. The two are completely different in my opinion, so he did rework it enough where it makes it its own track. But what a soundtrack, whether it's any reprise from the View to a Kill main theme or even those action themes. It's just a powerhouse soundtrack for me. It's definitely one that I'm going to listen to sort of on its own after this film's said and done.
Yeah, I think this is one of the better ones. And you sent me, I've never listened to it fully by itself, but you sent me one of the videos the other day. And it's like how good it is when they're on the bridge. And it's the fact that they're mixing in as well, that you mentioned you get the View to a Kill theme. And it's not the easiest of Bond themes to like include into a soundtrack. No,
that's what I was thinking. And I didn't know they were going to do that because I thought it is such like an 80s song. How can you turn that into an orchestra song? But they did it.
And I think the main thing is it works for the film. Mm-hmm. And I love it with the Bond films. I know we're a fiery, but I think we've both kind of said we both think that Zimmer, I mean, we know that Zimmer worked on the new song with Billie Eilish, but I'd imagine we'll get a lot of those kind of numbers in the new film, and I'd imagine Zimmer would want to do something like that. And I think this is where you get your John Barrow's come in, where he's been doing it for over 20 years at this point, still doing these Bond themes, and he's still able to switch it up. He's still able to get the classic moments. And I think the big thing in the last film with Octopussy, we kind of said that they had to get the Bond theme in there as much as possible because of Never Say Never Again. And I think in this one, he doesn't do it too much. He's able to try new things. And maybe that experience of being forced to use the same theme before, makes it easier for him to approach it new on this one. But I think it's great. And I think is his penultimate score as well. And, once again, normally with some musicians, I don't know there's many that's been doing franchises for that long, but obviously you look at John Williams with Star Wars, 40 plus years on them. And I don't know if there's been any other composers, but Williams and Barry probably the big two for decades from starting to finishing. And it's not an easy. And I saw the Untouchables the first time last night, and that's got Ennio Morricone, which was incredible because I've never really listened to his scores properly in films, so I've not actually seen that many. And even hearing that was like how obviously it's not franchised the Untouchables, but it's amazing when you get these sort of the elite composers because they are elite. Your Zimmer, your Williams. I'd argue Barry's probably up there. I know he's more famous for doing Bond than anything, but your Morricones, I think when you have that level of quality, you're going to get it. It doesn't matter if you're 5, 10, 15 films and you're still going to get it.
Yeah, and with composers, there's some fantastic composers working in the industry today. Giacchino, Zimmer, Desplat, to name a few. There are so many, but it is nice when you go to these sort of like your classic film composers, as you mentioned, like your Morricones, your John Williams, and your Barrys as well. We keep forgetting, he did do Bond, but he did loads of other films as well, really sweeping orchestral scores, and they're always nice to go back to. To me, Barry is the sound of Bond. Like when it comes to the soundtrack, like every soundtrack that he does, there have been some great ones where Barry hasn't been on it, but when he does come back, I think we mentioned this like in another stream that we did. When he comes back, you hear it, and it completely transforms the film. So it's sad to know for me that he's only got one more. I don't know if that's the very next one or if License to Kill was his last one. I guess I'll find out. But yeah, great score along to go with it. I guess we should talk about some of like the other major scenes. I mean, we've talked about some in passing. You know, we've talked about Ascot. We've talked about like the San Francisco stuff. I guess with Paris, we can talk about.
I've not spoken about the car.
I was going to say, yeah, the car chase, and actually one of my favorite stunts in this film is in that car chase. I love that he like ramps it off and it like lands on a truck, and then he drives over the truck and then back onto the road. I think they pull back in slow motion to like really let it set in. And also, I love it. Like, came out of nowhere when a car just clips, it just saws his car in half. Just smashes in, takes out the entire back end of his car. He's still driving it, of course he is. He's Roger Moore, and that's like your comedic Roger Moore stuff. But when that car just came out and just like saws his car in half, I was like, oh! And I was again like I was making sounds at the film as I was watching it, which I very rarely do. If I'm watching a film on my own, even if I'm enjoying the film, I'll pretty much just watch it deadpan and like completely silent. But there were moments where the stunts, especially in that car chase, I was really taken aback by and was really, really awesome.
I think because the car chase, well, it's basically at the same time as the parachute jump, isn't it? I think it gets forgotten about because you think of Paris, you think of the blimp, you don't really think of the car chase too much. And I think this isn't a criticism of the film, but after this point, you go so long without a set piece. Does the horse racing count when they're clicking buttons and trying to trip him up to kill him and stuff? It's a bit weird, but it's one of those where I think the car chase isn't spoken about enough. I think it's a really good scene. As you said, there are stunts. It's done real, and it's that Roger Moore charm, right? Who can drive half a car around the streets of Paris? Roger Moore, no one else. And it goes back to that, you know, to some people it'll be silly, it'll be old. And this is what I kind of said earlier, that the highlight of some of the action set pieces is, it's like I said, it's him in a cockpit. You know, look at Last One Wants Pussy. You know, you can, of course, it's a stuntman doing the big stuff. And I think this film has a lot of lingering shots as well, where you spend more time with the stunt doubles because the shots require stunt doubles more. And that doesn't compensate Roger Moore. But a scene like this really does. And it's, I think, classic Bond, isn't it? Bond theme kicking in as well. You know, Paris is I don't think they've done Paris too much, really, in the Bond films. Now I'm trying to think. I know someone mentioned something in the chat earlier.
Yeah, I was seeing that.
Very
I think this is the only time.
It's not. I mean, I'm not sorry to piss off the French. It's not. It's a massively overrated city. I've been there a few times, and it's not actually that nice. But you know, you're gonna get out of the way, and I just think this was a beautiful set piece. And I think, you know, the mine. I'm going to talk about. I know we'll get to the mine stuff later, but in terms of big set pieces, I think because it's so early, I think that's why it's forgotten about more than anything.
I honestly thought they'd do more with Paris. I mean, from like the music videos and from like just seeing that base jump scene and more running up the stairs of the Eiffel Tower, I thought they were going to spend more time in Paris. And I do think there is more to explore with Paris. And there were many other locations they could have gone to, or just spend a bit more time there. Maybe shorten some of the Ascot stuff and just really, you know, spend some time in Paris there. It was kind of a scene that was over before it began. You get the cool car chase scene and then like a quick action set piece on the actual Eiffel Tower. No, it's the other way around. Eiffel Tower first and then it's the car chase, isn't it? But then after that, we're away. Sorry? You
get the Roger Moore falling into the cake.
Yeah. That's right, yeah.
That's... If you're going to go guns blazing and why is this man too old to be James Bond, you're probably going to go with like, oh yeah, there's a joke where he falls through a roof and into a cake. That, you know, like nowadays, that's the sort of like Rotten Tomatoes one-liner, isn't it? Like, why is it negative? If you're tired of this, have a look at Roger Moore falling into a cake. And I love the whole chase, and the fact that then Grace Jones gets in the boat and you've just got her doing an evil maniacal laugh. Sorry, I don't get it. Like, why did they pick that boat? How did they know it would be that boat as well? Was he invited to the wedding? Questions don't need answers. But
I just like Christopher Walken to my wedding. Like, why not?
I hope he turns up. He's hosted SNL 8 times. So I'd imagine he might have popped it to a random wedding once in a while. You'd hope so. You'd hope so if you hosted that long. But yeah, the Paris of Yara, it goes quick. And for such a big city, like you look at, I'm trying to think which of the Craig films it was. They went to
Rome, wasn't there? They go to in
that was it. And
Spectre,
and they hyped up Rome for months and months. It was everywhere like, oh my god, there's going to be a car chase in Rome. I don't know if they went to what's the little country called inside of Rome where the Pope lives. The
Vatican.
That's it. I swear they go to the Vatican. when it goes to like marketing Bond films, you want to market those exotic, exuberant places where no one's done it before. Or in Philly.
Yeah.
I'd say a lot of that is in. I'd say a lot of that hype is in San Francisco, where you look at the real sort of not tourism, but this film was massive in America. And I can't remember if it was yourself, one of the Radio 007 guys said last week that the American influence on A View to a Kill, did it come from Octopus doing well in America? And apparently San Francisco like opened its doors for them all. Apparently they let them in, they let them do whatever they wanted to do. They were just happy to have Bond filming over there. And if you're going to do San Fran, of course you're going to do the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't know.
Every other film does it, don't they? X-Men 3, like there's probably Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
There's probably loads more that have done it, yeah.
It's such an iconic location, and not many, and I think every place has done it differently, that bridge too, you know, like obviously Planet Apes got like monkeys, you know, swinging under and over and stuff, X-Men lifting it, putting it somewhere else, but then like Bond, like at the top of it, it's so cool. And again, it's a stunt that you'd imagine if they hadn't have done it in 85, they'd have done it at some point in the 30 years that came after.
It's a great set piece to have the final fight on as well. A lot of it is rear projection, especially when it cuts to Stacey's character's clinging armor. It's fine. I think George of the Jungle as well. Does that go there as well? I don't know. I'm trying.
Yes, I think no, it does. I remember. No, George of the Jungle goes there. Yeah.
That's a film I need to go back to. Completely unrelated.
Fantastic Four as well. I'm
yes.
Sure in 05.
People know any more, get commenting Golden Gate Bridge films. But it's a great set piece. As I say, it's striking on the poster, and I think it has a great payoff at the end of the film as well. Oh my God, other scenes. We're kind of straying into favourite scenes now as well.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to talk about the mine shaft scene. Do you want to talk about that a little
bit? The mine scene, I don't have a problem with it. I just think it's very bland. The set design, like, now this is what I was going to kind of speak to. We're going to bring up Indiana Jones again, right? You speak about the mine chase better than anyone I know could speak about it. Like how important that scene is, how great that scene is.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like a mine. That feels like this sort of whimsical, incredible set. Mm-hmm. The problem I've always had of it just looks like a level off COD. Like, here's the main landing platform. And like, there's a side tunnel, but it's just going to be a side tunnel where we know we're just going to have them running back and forth. And you know, we know the stage set on fire, right? Maybe there was other designs that didn't work. I just think the mindset was very bland compared to what it could have been. But I don't know if that may have been production issues or whatnot. But the mindset, I didn't really enjoy it. Again, is it because I know Indiana Jones did it so much better here before? And if someone's going to say, "Hey, tell me a great mine sequence," there's only one correct answer, and you're not going to talk about this one.
I think visually this film isn't as impressive as some of the previous Bond films, I think, just cinematically, cinematography-wise or whatnot. And maybe this comes down to the set as well. I think with Indiana Jones, because it is that whimsical adventure action film, you can go crazy, and it's this weird, twisty-turny, there's like fire pits and all that kind of crazy stuff that's in Temple of Doom, and why we love Temple of Doom, whereas this one, they wander onto a construction site that leads down to a mine, so it needs to feel functional and operational as a real mine, maybe, and your big set piece follows right after with the blimp and the Golden Gate Bridge, so that's your visually impressive set piece. But we do spend a lot of time in that mine, and it's very brown. That's the only way I could describe it. It's very brown and grey, and yeah, it doesn't make for an interesting set piece to have Bond in. I get it, but you have to have it for the plot, don't you, that they're going to blow the river, the water, whatever they're doing, whatever crazy shenanigans Max Zorin's doing. But yeah, I can see that. I think that the City Hall stuff's much more visually impressive.
Yes.
With the fire and the elevator stuff. Yeah. The Golden Gate Bridge, as I've mentioned, and even like the horse chase at the Ascot, I thought was filmed very well. But that part is kind of, you know, it's your pre-final act, really, isn't it? But yeah, I agree. It's not impressive to look at visually. Like if I think back to, oh my God, like Octopussy, like the last film we did, looked incredible, beginning to end, and especially that final sequence as well. Every single set, every single location they go to looked amazing. Whereas this one, I'll be like, I'll skip past the mine sequence, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a great point bringing up Octopus, because you think of that finale, it's like, here's the plane, here's it spinning around, here's these incredible stunts, and this one's kind of like, okay, bit of a mine scene. Oh, and we've got a blimp. And I'm not going to diss on the blimp too much, because it's a very, very unique design. Apparently, there's a bit of blimpomania. Apparently, the 1984 Olympics, there was a blimp that opened it, and it was, I don't know if it was the same blimp, but they saw that and were inspired by that. And that's why the blimp was in A View to a Kill. When I think of blimps, I think of like World War like 2, and like like weird games from the 80s, like steampunk things that people and like that weird stuff, and it's such a random device, but it works for Max Zorin. I'll give it that, it works. But a blimp, it feels slow. It doesn't feel like you can get a big man like, aha, he's hanging onto a blimp. It's not like he's hanging on the side of an airplane, is it? And I know they've done that; they can't do it again. But I wonder if the blimp kind of dampens that climax as well. That it's an incredible thing to want to do, and I love it for it. That it blows up in the space of like 30 seconds. But they must have the best air machine in the history of air machines. Like,
they did say that. I did read. I think it takes 2 days to blow up one of those things, and it just does it like instantly in this film. He's Zorin, right? Maybe he funneled some money into air
microchips.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, microchips.
It's just, it is very slow moving, but I mean, it gets us to the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's not really the blimp that's the draw, it's the death-defying heights of the bridge, I think, that's sort of like the biggest draw for it. I want to talk about this blimp, though, because I was talking about this before we went live. I don't understand this. So, on the outside, it's an advertising blimp and nothing more. On the inside, he's got a boardroom, he's hosting meetings in there. Like, could you imagine that? Oh, I'm late for this meeting. Oh, sorry, mate. Like, the blimp's taken off. Like, it's just
is it a second blimp? Hold on. Is there 2 blimps?
Yeah, it's a smaller one at the end, I think, isn't it?
So where's the main one? It's going to be like You Only Live Twice, where like the bigger blimp is going to eat the smaller blimp.
Like, you think that? Yeah, when they set up with that first blimp, you expect that your action sequence is going to take place on there, and then Bond will hit like the airlock button,
the sliding doors.
Yeah, taste of his own medicine.
I just realised that. So do you think he has a blimp at every construction site in case he needs a quick getaway?
Maybe, yeah. And it's like a sign, isn't it? It's like in a little sort of like kiosk thing that just sort of like, it's like a transformer that unfolds and then a blimp comes out of it. It's great. But yeah, that first blimp scene as well. I think we're going to save the line for the one-liners because that is one of the best and it belongs to the villain in this film. But yeah, he's just hosting that meeting and he's got like a little miniature of Silicon Valley because of course he has. He's the business tycoon villain. It's like, these are outrageous terms, and then he just like chucks him out the goddamn, I don't know what you call it, just drops him out of and he falls so far as well. I was saying this before we went live that you see him falling and then it cuts back to inside and there's like a bit of a scene there and it cuts back and the guy's still falling before he hits the water. That blimp was high up. That was like insanely high up. But
was it on Her Majesty's when the guy goes off on the skis?
That was it.
And you see the skis figure like that for like a minute.
Yeah.
And maybe they like looked at that and thought, oh, should we just quickly cut away? And I think it made it look weirder. But
yeah.
It was just, I just love the fact it's a dummy. Like
it didn't look like a dummy. I actually give them credit for this. It didn't look like a dummy. Like it looked like a real person kind of flailing. Maybe I need to watch it again. Even with like Walken at the end when he falls, it didn't look like a dummy to me.
Do you think if Tom Cruise was doing one, he'd do it for real?
Yeah, of course he would. Yeah. He'd be the first guy to do it and survive, because of course he would.
Right. Is there any other big scenes? I think
City
we've covered
Hall.
the scenes.
I want to talk about City Hall.
Yes. The fire truck chase.
Yeah. It's great. I loved it. Am I going to talk about
love City Hall. I love City Hall. Just that.
What's the exchange? I've got to find the quote here. I'm not going to do the entire because this is like a monologue. I'm not going to do the entire Christopher Walken voice. I promise, guys. I'm good in like short bursts.
The whole story.
Yeah, he's like, you discharged her, so she and her accomplice came here to kill you. They then set fire to the office to conceal the crime, but they were trapped in the elevator and perished in the flames. But that means I would have to be dead. And then he shoots him. The whole ensuing scene, I think it's incredible. I think it's intense. The music's fantastic. I love how it's shot. When he just bungs like not one but 2 Molotov cocktails on top of the elevator and the cable snapping. Actually, that's interesting. If anyone knows elevators, because they're like steel cables, aren't they? They're not. If a rope was on fire, obviously it would snap. But if steel was on fire, would it still unravel? And I don't know. Maybe someone can tell me. So that was a bit of a stretch, but it led to a great action scene. As I mentioned, I really like Stacey's character. She is the damsel character, but that is a pretty horrible, horrific situation to be in, like trapped in an elevator when it's on fire. And I think she played it very well. And I'm not going to talk about... is this kind of favourite scenes that we're talking about now as well?
If you enjoy this scene, we'll just merge it and start the favourites.
I'm going to merge this with my favourites because this is my favourite moment in the entire film. And it's when Bond is carrying Stacey over his shoulders. The fanfare kicks in. Someone mentioned it earlier. You've got the whole crowd of people on the floor cheering him on, and he's just carrying her down the ladder. To me, that is one of my favorite Bond moments, heroic Bond moments, and it felt like Superman the movie. I know you haven't seen this film yet, George, and I'm going to force you to watch Superman the movie at some point, but if anyone's seen Superman the movie, you know what I'm talking about, the original Christopher Reeve film, when the helicopter falls off the roof and he's got Lois Lane and he catches the helicopter and you've got all the crowds of people on the floor and they're all applauding and cheering. It's this awesome superhero heroic moment. And it did feel like a scene from Superman, because when that fanfare kicks in, that is almost like the hero's main theme. And it is Bond's main theme in this one. And we talked about how great the A View to a Kill song is. And when you hear it, that's when it's playing in full statement, when the brass is just going 10 to the dozen and it kicks in. I love that moment. And that was my favorite moment. And that's what I mean. I think that if you didn't have Roger Moore in this film and you had like a new guy, that scene wouldn't have had the same impact as it did to me, because I've had like 7 films now with Roger Moore. That is kind of Roger Moore to me at the moment as of watching these films. So that was a great moment for me. So, and then like the fire truck chase was pretty cool as well. But that moment, top tier for me. Loved it. And you're going to hate it now. I can already see. Go for it. I'm going to take a drink. You go for it.
Listen, I love City Hall. I love the whole, it's weird that just Bond like worked there. That's what the question I keep asking. Like, was he working there for a few days? I don't really know what happened. But anyway,
she was.
I love the fire stuff. She works there. She needed a job or something. All a bit random, but the whole setting fire, because it's like, they're not going to set fire to the elevator. Of course they'll get out. And I love the fact they do. It creates tension, which is what you rarely get in a Bond film. You rarely get tension. However, the Superman moment now, I've not seen Superman, so I can't really take it, but do I really need to, like, Roger Moore's Bond is struggling. Like, you might as well play the Top Gun theme at the rate he's going down those ladder steps, because I felt like I was watching it for 5 minutes. Charlie and Chocolate Factory, when they play the 2001 Space Odyssey music, It felt like something like that with Roger Moore coming down to orbit.
Did you expect him to like slide down the ladder?
No, it's just not something you really like. If the City Hall's on fire, why are there hundreds of people just standing around clapping the ladder? Like, I'm not going to do a whole "that's not James Bond" thing.
It's
but
a movie. It's.
I know exactly. I know it's a movie. It's just. I think it's a hard sell. I think when you've got this Roger Moore doing that, it's a harder sell for me. I just don't think it worked. I loved all of it, just up to the descent of the ladder, and I absolutely hated the fire truck scene. And he drives that fire truck to the mines, right? He's a wanted. I think we spend way too long with the police, and you know what I will say. If there was ever a moment to bring back Sheriff J.W. Pepper, that was the moment. It could, and I will say this, it should have been done. If he had returned for that final scene, the last one. That I would have took that. But I think, why are we spending so much time with a cop we don't care or like for? So I wasn't. It felt like the early 70s Roger Moore stuff that we didn't like. Maybe is that fair? Personally, that I didn't like. So not we. And I just really didn't like it. And I think the whole like, oh no, the fire's swinging side to side, and I'm there like, come on, man, like this isn't George of the Jungle. This is James Bond. Like, he shouldn't be dangling. And some of the comedy's great.
Bond.
But this is the thing, isn't it? I know it's Roger Moore's Bond, and I just think it was a stretch even for him, like dangling off the side of a I'm just going to finally say it's the Kylo Ren, like, look how old you've become. And that's how I just felt with some of these action scenes. That I know it's not him, obviously. Roger was not going to hang off a ladder. Although I believe he did drive some of the truck. Someone said that in an interview I saw, that apparently someone, wasn't there, at some point he drove the firefighter, because when he was younger, he had a heavy good vehicle license. And I want to know that story. I don't know who knows it, but someone can find it. But I
think Nikolai's got you there with a J.W. Pepper quote, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, listen, he might as well have said it, because they're all just standing like, oh my God, he saved her, and they're waiting to arrest them, and it's just like, really? Are you really going to arrest him after that? You're not going to interview him or anything, you're just going to arrest them. But it's just some things, I don't know. Personally, for me, that scene was a really, really low point, and I know they're happy they're in San Francisco, but it felt like we need to tell you all we're in San Francisco more so than having the Golden Gate Bridge. It'd be like we did London, right? It's like, okay, we've done Big Ben. Now, how else can we show them we're in Big Ben? We're in London. Let's 101 Dalmatians at the original, didn't they? They're like, let's go on a bicycle tour of like every city landmark in 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind it sometimes, but personally, I just think this scene was a bit much for me for Roger Moore. I was kind of like, get back to Zorin Industries, please.
I love the fire truck scene. I actually, it was probably one of my favorite bits in the film. As Nicholas, he's loving the conflict between the two of us here. Yeah, on the rare occasion, yeah, we do have conflict here, but it's always friendly. It's always with love on James Bond. Yeah, no, I just thought it was a really enjoyable action sequence. You had like the really intense moment with like the fire in the elevator. You had like your great superhero moment for me with James Bond coming down the ladder. And then you throw in the fire truck scene. I love the little exchange that he has with the cop as well before. And he says, like, I'm James Bond of the British Secret Service. And he's like, yeah, and I'm Dick Tracy. And then he just like does like the water hydrant and like takes him out. Love that bit. I even love like the little character moments where, you know, he's driving the fire truck and Stacey kind of relaxes into it. And then she like hits the siren button and they exchange a glance. I quite like that moment as well. I didn't mind him dangling from the ladder as well. I'll agree that in that moment, do all the action scenes, I completely agree. He does look too old to do them. But the whole thing where it's like, oh, I can clearly tell that a stuntman's doing that, that's not really a problem to me because that's happened in like pretty much every other Bond film before this point. It's cartoony, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's pretty much like all the other Roger Moore films. He's done way more over the top and ridiculous stuff than just dangling on a ladder saying like, no, left or whatever. And he still gets the job done. The bit where the stunt guy's sort of near missing cars and like lifting his legs up to dodge a car, and you know it's all shot in camera, even if it is with a stuntman, still look great to me. And I love the bridge jump. That's in so many films as well, when you've got like the bridges that lift up and they just make it over. You've got the epic jump from the fire truck as well, and the cop cars dangling off. It was a great scene to me. I'm pretty much just recounting the whole scene at this point, but I thought it was a really good. I preferred the fire truck chase to all the mine stuff. In all honesty, I'm going to say that. I mean, seeing Christopher Walken drown everyone and shoot everyone and electrocute everyone was great. Don't get me wrong. And I love Mayday's moment in the mine, but it just felt really different. That moment with the fire truck scene and the City Hall bit felt more like this is like an 80s action film scene. Like that could be a car chase in any 80s action film, any like kind of like spy 80s film, rather than this is a James Bond action set piece, if you know what I mean. I know there's been like car chases here and there and everywhere, but I think it's because it's like at night time and you've got like all the traffic on the road and the cops. It felt more like a run-of-the-mill car chase from like any other 80s film that could have come out at that point to me. And maybe that's why I liked it, because I love my 80s films perhaps. But
definitely, I want to really quickly bring up one comment I saw. Oh no, wrong one. Sorry. This one. Chris, you like the film more than me. I just wanted to bring that up by Nicola. We will get to it shortly, final thoughts, but we're also going to speak about the Moore era, because we're going to speak about some other comments I accidentally brought up earlier. They were talking about Dalton, which we'll get to as well. You've mentioned that's one of your favourite scenes. I don't know where to start my favourite scenes, because I like so much of the film. Any moment with Matt Zorin in is a favourite scene. I know that's cheating, but anytime he is on screen, he like electrifies it. That he comes on and you sit here thinking, like, oh my god, like we've got Chris Walken doing a James Bond villain film. I want to know more, and it's like you want to keep hearing him say words, or just let him just keep talking for 5 minutes. There's so much potential, and but if I'm trying to pick an outright favorite scene from this film, I'm trying so not to pick the Duran Duran title credits, because that sounds like I'm dissing the film. And this is probably my third favorite Moore film. What is probably my favorite scene? We spoke about so many. I'm going to say the Paris scenes. I think was perfect in terms of pacing and everything. I know we spoke about it in detail, but favorite scene for me, just the Paris, the 15-20 minutes we get there. You've got charm, you've got comedy, you've got a good stunt, you've got action, and you've got satisfying. Could even work as its own like short film. And I'm not going to hate on the credit scene, but if you really look at the sequential of the film, that Paris scene, that 15 minutes you get, that would have been a hell of an opening credit scene. I'm glad it wasn't. It works.
I thought it was going to be the opener.
Yeah, because we spoke about that recently, didn't we? Mm-hmm. And I think I think Paris could have been quick. 'Cause it doesn't come into it till later on, and it sets you off on the journey of what's happened here, and I think that's what makes it interesting. But there's just so many. I mean, we didn't even speak about not the horse race, but the actual horse attack thing. Like, I don't know what the plan is. It's like, we're gonna have a horse race, but I've got all these buttons and cheats that are gonna make sure I get to win and you lose. And the goal is for Bond to fall off the horse so he gets killed by the stampede behind him. Either way, it's fucking great. And every
time
Zorin...
Did they make some kind of bet? I can't remember. Was it like, if I win or something, then you get to do this? And I don't know. I thought they made a bet beforehand, like some kind of wager.
There was something. There was a wager, but I think Zorin knew he was Bond at this point, and Bond didn't know that he knew. So Zorin knew he was going to get him. I think he just couldn't fall off the horse. And I think that was an underrated scene. I'd have rather got more bits like that than we did of the actual horse racing at Ascot.
Well, you all know my favourite scene in this film. I've just talked about it for probably about 10 minutes, but I think it's just refreshing as well to see scenes like that and go, it's okay to have your archetypal sort of like masculine hero saving someone. Like, I know that recently in films that seems to be something that's kind of frowned upon or seemed as like too old school now and sort of or problematic or something like that. And I don't know, it was refreshing to see that again, and it is that superhero quality moment to me when I watch like the original Superman films, when you watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films or something, and you know, you could even say Tim Burton's '89 Batman film with Kim Basinger, who now she's a screamy damsel in distress. She's kind of in the tier where I'm not too keen on her character, but it's okay to have someone saving someone, and it just felt like a really, comparatively with Bond, you know, like saving the world multiple occasions, just the simple act of saving one person out of a burning building. I mean, there are probably a lot of other people in that burning building, come to think of it now. Hopefully the firefighters got all those other people. There's going to be like a scene from Raimi's Spider-Man going like, there's someone trapped on the 3rd floor, never made it out or something.
You can imagine Roger Moore doing that kind of like gentlemanly...
Yeah, let him down. But another scene I wanted to talk about as well, probably my second favorite scene in the film. It's after, is it Tibbet? Tibbet is his name? His friend. When they both dump the bodies in the car and push it into the river, and then like they're drowning. I thought that was so great how he undoes the catch on the tire and he's like breathing the air out of the tire and he's waiting until they back off. I love that part. That was really tense for me. And talking about Bond in those situations where I don't know how he's going to get out of it, I had that with the propeller moment, but probably more so was just how ingenious he was in that moment to think of that. And I don't know, I love that. I always have a problem with that. That's kind of a trope, and I'll be talking about that when we get to Skyfall, how if someone goes underwater, the villains always tend to just like immediately walk off and just go, oh, well, they're clearly dead. It's like, why don't you stand on the bank for like half hour to make sure that no one comes out of that water? But they do stand there for a while, and I think it was quite a cool way that he gets out of that. So that's probably another one of my favorite scenes in the film, I think.
I love that moment, and if that comes after he's running off the horses, he thinks Tibbet's alive as well. And I don't know, plot twist, it's great. I think that whole scene works great. You mentioned earlier about the car wash, like pre-Final Destination car wash anxiety comes from that moment. But like you've got like the Indiana Jones girl lurking, and they're all watching, and it's what's going to happen to Tibbet, and it's how they play it off, and it gets a good payoff. It's a great moment, and I think it's quite ingenious. I don't know if it works in real life. I don't care, but spies are meant to be intelligent. All scenarios considered. If you got air out of a tire, I don't know if that will ever works. I'm sure someone has tested it at home in the last 30 years. But it is the moments of that. And I think what you mentioned, the fact that they are lurking more than most ones would, that bigs up Zorin as a threat. He's sadistic, and he's going to try and make sure he's got that kill. He's not just going to let him go and presume it's all good. So it's moments that do help sell it. And again, I can't imagine many of the Bonds using a tire of a sinking car to stay alive, which also works again for Roger Moore. Love seeing stuff like that.
We've got a lot of people sort of commenting with their rankings at the moment. Now, I did promise you guys last week in the live chat that I'd do my ranking. I can give you my top 3. We'll get onto the one-liners in a minute, actually. But off the top of my head right now, my top 3 Roger Moore performances, Roger Moore films, because it is the last one that we're talking about with Roger Moore. It's very sad. I'm going to be sad to see him go, but I'm also very intrigued to see where we're moving next with them. Number 1 is The Spy Who Loved Me. Number 2, Octopussy. I think, is probably my number 2, and my number 3 is Moonraker. I like my comedic Bond films, but I've got to put The Spy Who Loved Me at number 1 because it was just the right balance of both. Everything came together for that one. I'm not going to give you any more because we are going to do an overall ranking, and that might be a spoiler. But if you just want my top 3 Roger Moore Bond films, Bond performances, those would be my top 3, I think.
I'm actually similar to 2 out of 3. So I've got Spy Who Loved Me, at the top, Octopussy second, and then this is what I was and ahhing last night. They were sort of 3 near each other, but I'm putting this one above the others. I'm putting View to a Kill third. I don't think I'm still on the high. I love Moonraker. It was this one, Moonraker, for me. I love both of them. I just think this is the Christopher Walken and Grace Jones factor. I know that Moonraker's got a great villain and a great henchman as well, but there was something about this one. I don't know if it's the 80s or if it's the song, but I love Moonraker. It was this one, Moonraker. It's a toss-up, but I'm the same as you that, I can tell you what's at the bottom, and you're not going to like it, so I'm not going to say it out loud because a lot of you are putting it near the top. But it's exciting. Look, we didn't really do this with Connery. I know we can't do it for Dalton or Dalton thing, but yeah, there's going to be a big rankings video. I'm going to say this is a tease to you guys. On our channel, there's a Marvel rankings video. I don't mind saying this. Chris is right saying it.
Yeah.
If you like Marvel, check that out. We had everyone that popped on during the Marvel retrospective that popped on, did a top 10 with us. We used a scoring system, basically F1, to get a definitive top 10. We're going to do something similar after all this is said and done. So it's still a long way away, but we're holding off on ranking stuff properly. But if you want to have a tease of how it might look at the end, go check that out on our channel. It's a really different ranking video as well, really fun to do. Took time to organize, but we think it's going to be beautiful when we get around to it for this one. That being said, I mean, I know that we've got one big segment we've not spoken about yet.
Yeah, we have.
I know we're going. Let's. I'm going to hand over to you for the weekly one-liners because I know you write them down, so I've given up trying to remember them. I'm not going to lie. But I know my favorite, and I think it's your favorite as well.
Yeah, this list today, my God, I feel like haven't got it on parchment paper, but if I did, imagine it like the bottom would just roll out and across the floor. There are so many this week. Most of them we've already talked about. There's a fly in his soup when Aubergine's dead. That got a smirk out of me. Not necessarily a one-liner, but I did love this small little exchange. It's when he goes to, it's at the beginning of the film, and she's like, St. John Smith, and he's like, St. John Smythe. I don't know why. I thought that was quite funny. There's quite a letdown with the lift. Don't worry, it's all wrapped up when he puts the guy in the box on the conveyor belt.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to leave the Walken one for you because I know that's your favorite. I've got Wow, What a View to a Kill. We've already mentioned that. It just makes no sense. It's just crowbarred in the film. I've mentioned the Tchaikovsky one. Okay, my favorite though, and this takes it for me. I Trust You Slept Well. A little restless, but I got off eventually. It's right after he's with Grace Jones for the night. That's my number one. I
can't say it. I can't do it justice. It's the... I'm not going to do it in the voice.
Do it.
It's of course the blimp.
Come on, you owe it to this scene. You owe it to Christopher Walken to do it.
I can't do it well.
You've done it before. Do it.
I know, but now I'm on the spot. It's kind of like I can't pronounce it right. It's like, no, I'm not. I was going to intro the whole episode, so that's my piece. But if you want to attempt it, of course, it's the anyone else want to drop out. I'm not going to do the impression. I'm not going to. But I can't butcher the best line of the film.
In that line, I think he's
no. This is the problem. He just emphasizes the drop out part. It's not like a proper. I mean, it is Walken saying it, but it's not your typical. He could have delivered that better, right? I'm not saying there's a criticism. I know it is, but it's the best line of the film. I watched that and I laughed. And he's out Roger Moore.
Yeah, he did.
You know?
And I know people always throw out that line as well at the blimp at the end when he's like, more power. I gotta have more power. Like, I don't know what he says, but everyone was commenting that was a great line. Totally Walken, but
it's just he's one of those actors where everyone just, as you said at the beginning, everyone does the impressions of right, and you can't even if it's bad, it's still good because you're trying to do a Walken impression, but you don't want to get it wrong. And when I was younger, I was very good at impressions for a couple of different celebrities, and he was one of them. But that skill has faded over time. And I tried to bring it back on Saturday, but it's not as good. I got a couple of ones out of the way, but maybe I'm better at old Walken. I need to see some more stuff.
I'm trying to think. Now we've got Walken out of the way. I don't know Probably until GoldenEye, actually, with Sean Bean.
I
don't
going to get me doing a
know
northern accent.
who the one does not simply walk into Mordor. Get prepared for the Lord of the Rings quotes when I get to that film. I don't know of another actor. I'm not going to say of this caliber, but of just like Christopher Walken, and you know exactly what you're getting.
We've had a Christopher Lee, we had the Walken. We know we're going to get Sean Bean at some point.
I don't know any
Mads
other ones
Mikkelsen.
though in the immediate future until we get to the Craig ones, because I know them and I've seen them of this kind of level. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, because there are some where there's very, very good actors, but it's not necessarily the fun that comes with it. Looking at the Brosnan era, I don't know if you know some of the. I know that License to Kill has, I believe, he's the Goonies villain. Is the main villain? I might be wrong.
Bobba Fratelli,
it could be. I know this is really off track now, but let me quickly.
The guy from the Matrix. Memento, the dude in Memento.
No. It's I'm trying to think if Sanchez is the actor of Sanchez from License to Kill. It's really known. I know that Benicio del Toro is the henchman, which I've said to you before. It's going to really kill me that I've forgotten the name of the actor. He's in so many stuff. He always plays a fantastic villain. I'm just trying to kill time now because I hate the new IMDb layout. It's called Robert Davi. I think he's in the Goonies. I could be incredibly wrong. He's called Jake in the Goonies.
Robert Davi, D-A-V-I?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, Nikolai, Special Agent Johnson from Die Hard. He's one of the actors that you recognize their face, but he's not Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken, I almost put in the video. If anyone's never seen Walken in the Air, it's a remake of the classic Christmas snowman film, but it's a Christopher Walken in the Air, and there's no more to be said. But I kind of want to do another Walken accent. I just can't do it. I'm better at the smaller. When I just do it spontaneously, it's better than when I do it knowing I'm going to do it. If that makes any sense.
I think we're all walking out, aren't we? My God, we've gone.
How do we wrap this up?
Already. Let's talk about Moore and his final scene. We haven't talked about the final scene really of Moore. I know someone commented earlier that they weren't too keen on it. I mentioned at the beginning it's quite a low key ending. I think for him, if they knew this was going to be his last one, you'd expect some kind of like big ending for him as some kind of big send off, and it's just like the archetypal ending, really, isn't it? For the Moore ones, like in every single thing, it's like he's necking with the lady, and then either M or Q or someone's listening in. I think that's been like the ending to pretty much most of Roger Moore's films, really, hasn't it? So it was more in keeping with that, but it's just, I don't know. Someone mentioned like the little robot dog thing that was like the robot from Rocky, which is quite funny. The 80s was all about robots for some reason. I don't understand why. What was the film's fixation? Yeah,
was this before Terminator? When was Terminator 1? Was it 84?
84, so 1 year after that. Maybe it has to do with it. I don't know, but I didn't really like the final scene with the shower thing. I mean, it is like classic Moore, but I thought they could have done something, pun intended, they could have done something more with it, knowing that it was his final scene. You know, like the ending of Spectre, I know that they didn't think that was going to be Craig's last one, but he's in the car, the theme music plays, and he drives off into the distance in the car. Something like that, maybe, for Roger Moore, especially after 7 films, I would expect.
Yeah, this is it, right? When we talk about the final Bond film from an actor, that if you look at every Bond except Craig, you don't know that's their last film. You look at, well, actually, okay, I lied. Diamonds Are Forever. You probably knew Connery wasn't going to come back, right? But you didn't know You Only Live Twice was on paper going to be the last one heading into it. Obviously, Lazenby, no one would ever think he'd do one film. Roger Moore, a lot of people have thought this is his last film, but he signed on to Musical very early. There was no casting debacle. That was all Octopussy. And I think once this film's done, you know, they would have probably knew throughout filming / after filming, okay, this is done. And once the critics savaged it, which was a bit too unfair, I think, but they were really nasty to him from what I've heard of reviews at the time. So this wasn't, I mean, I love this. I think this is a high to go out on, but not many people obviously agree. And obviously Brosnan, you know, technically the last Bond thing he did was a PS2 game. He didn't think he'd be going out as well. Dalton, you know, we didn't know he'd be going out in 89 as well. So looking at the sort of the end of a Bond within its own little conversation piece, that Craig is the only one we've known from day one of that film being announced. This is Craig's last Bond film.
Mm.
Day one. we knew he didn't want to come back. And, obviously he said what he said. We'll get to that when we cover Spectre, I think. But I think he's someone that he wants to go out on a high. And I've got a lot of hope. Hope more so than faith in No Time to Die, presuming we get it September 30th. And it's sad that if they'd have known this was going to be his last film, I think there would have been a beautiful scene of him and Moneypenny, because it's, as I said earlier, it feels like the end of an era. It doesn't feel like the end of Moore. Like Moore is sort of what, 14 years, whereas Craig's now 15 years, but he's only done 4 films. Roger Moore had done that by 79, and it's just one of them where, could have been him leaving the office or saying bye to Moneypenny, taking, he never did the throwing hat, but it's such a, and I know that the whole Roger Moore joke for the era was always the last scene is him necking with someone, and then, he gets caught or accused being a creep or something like that. And this is one of the ones where it doesn't feel like they knew it'd be his last one when they filmed it. And I don't think it has a payoff. And I think it's quite disappointing to read, really. But I don't know. Reflecting on the era, tremendous. As we said, like, Roger Moore transcends the character of Bond, where I think by having Moore's Bond, that opened the avenue for actors to come in and try and put their own stamp on it. You know how we speak about, like, Marvel, right? Like, you got to be, like, in the right mindset. And obviously, I know we're 3 Spider-Men in now. That every approach to the characters has been different, and I think Bond got it right at the right moment. Where with the early Moore films, that he was trying to be Connery, and then let him become his own Bond. We get that with Dalton; he becomes his own take on the character. Brosnan, a bit of a hybrid of Connery and Moore, but that is his take. Daniel Craig is his take, and I think the Moore era, if that doesn't work, I think after Moore, the whole conversation about it's going to have to be a British Bond. You're not going to get foreign ones after that. It's going to stay as British. I think the Moore era is in a reason we still have James Bond today. I think a lot of things could have gone wrong, and they always switched up, whether it's silly, whether it's stupid. The Moore era is one of the most important eras for me for the history of James Bond. I know it's easy to say because he did 7 films, but sort of reflecting on it, it's why everyone calls him Sir Roger pretty much 24/7. Like when you think of him, like Roger Moore is definitively Bond, whereas like you look at Connery. It's like, it's Sean Connery being Bond, but Roger Moore, you cannot see anyone but him. And I think that as an absolute praise, not like, he's big in the character, but Roger Moore is always going to be his James Bond. He's not going to be someone else's. He's going to be true to himself. And I think that's why it works. Whereas you look at Connery, I think, that's James Bond because he set the tone, he set everything in there. But also Sean Connery is Sean Connery. And he's going to be that in every film, whether it's Untouchables, Indiana Jones, The Rock, so many of us down the line. He's an absolute machine. But the Roger Moore, it's that, like, I'm not even, I know I'm really waffling now, I'm going to end on this, but so many people grew up in the Moore era. And I think because he really had 2 eras, didn't he? He had the 70s and the 80s. And, kids couldn't watch License to Kill. Like, that's a big age group that you couldn't take your kids to the cinema to watch a Bond film because it was too adult. So what would you do? There was Bond on VHS, there was Bond on TV, and it would have always been the Roger Moore. So I think no actor has done more for the legacy and outside of the films has done more for James Bond than Roger Moore.
Yeah, I'll agree. I mean, what was it, 1973 to 1985? Well over a decade, 7 films, the longest serving in terms of amount of films, James Bond. And I think ultimately, whether he's your favorite or whether he isn't, it ultimately depends on what is your takeaway from the James Bond character. Yeah. What do you want to see James Bond be depicted as? Granted, there are another 2 Bonds that I have yet to see, including the one that we're talking about next week with Dalton and Brosnan, who I still need to see. But he made it his own, and he's put his own stamp on it. And I don't know much about Roger Moore outside of the films and the press that he did for these films. But every time I hear it, that he was always championing Bond, and he was always really approachable, really nice guy. These have been I think I've enjoyed the Roger Moore films more so than I have the Connery ones. That's not to take away from the Connery ones at all, but the Roger Moore Bond films hit like a real sweet spot where they're just so not approachable, that's not the right word, but you can just come into them and they're just entertaining. It is the entertainment side of it, I think, that I latch onto more with these films. say what you want about Live and Let Die, say what you want about Man with the Golden Gun. I think they were trying to find their footing with those films, but straight after that, it's pretty much just been more or less smooth sailing for me after that point. And it is the right time to move on. You see him in this film, and arguably you could say that Octopussy should have been his last one, but he had one more in the tank with this one. I still enjoyed this film. It's not up there in terms of my favorite Roger Moore James Bond films. It'd probably be like mid-tier. I've already given my top 3, and maybe it'd be right after that. I will know when I come to do my official ranking, which is going to be like the hardest thing I've ever had to do on this channel, I think, is ranking all 25 films once they're all said and done. But I've had such a great time over the last 7 weeks with Roger Moore as Bond, and I'll get to re-rank my favorite Bond at the end of it. But I think now, I've said that Connery is my favorite. I think he is the best still out of the two. I think that's just the history with the character and that he was the first one. But, which Bond would I rather watch out of all their films? It'd probably be Roger Moore at this point, I think. I've had a great time with him. I think it was a good film to end on, but it was absolutely the right time to move on. And I think the style and the tone and the sort of comedic side to it, not to say that I think the comedic side's probably going to go away. I have seen the trailer for The Living Daylights, and there's more humor in the trailer than I expected there would be from the Timothy Dalton stuff. The trailer was just like action, action, action. Here's every action set piece from the entire film, and that was like the real focus of it. But Moore brought such a charm to the role. He is the romantic Bond, as I keep saying, and I don't know. It's going to be tough shoes to fill, I think. To me, Moore just had it all. Like, he walked into a room. He was just so lovable as Bond. And I know that Bond's meant to be this tortured and lonely, haunted soul. And if you want that, you've got Timothy Dalton, you've got the Daniel Craig films for that. But if you just... Maybe it's my love for, like, 80s action films and the kind of comedic, tongue-in-cheek style of stuff, your Arnold Schwarzenegger films, your Stallone films. Not to put him on the same level as those two, but the same tone to those kind of films, how you can just throw one on, shut your brain off, have a good time with it. And I think that was absolutely Roger Moore's Bond to me.
No, exactly. While you mentioned the ranking, I'm going to quickly bring it up on screen. So for those that are new, that don't know this, we have a ranking going on for everyone that's jumped on for our videos. At the moment, we've got Roger Moore winning with 3, and then we've got Brosnan, Connery, and Dalton each on 2. Now, we know one of Chris's 2 is on Connery, and we'll be re-ranking that at the end of this. We haven't decided when, but it will be after the end of the series, when you've caught up, basically. That's the polite way. And it could be decisive at this point in time, but, as you said with Bond, it's generational. Everyone's got their Bond, and it's what we always said to the people that can't pick. We say, on a rainy Sunday, you're going to pick a film. Who would it be? And I think, personally, I'm the same as you with this, that I think the Roger Moore films are more interesting. Connery is the better Bond, and I think I've got way more respect now than I did when I was younger for From Russia with Love. But those first 3 Connery films are head and shoulders better than the next 3 he did. And I think it's such a massive way. Obviously, cinema's changed. It's so many years later and whatnot, but he put his own stamp on it. And by Roger Moore doing that, it let other people do what they wanted to do. It's what you said, the whole tortured soul. If Roger Moore had to pretend to be Sean Connery, you wouldn't have got up to View to Kill. You'd have probably been done and dusted with Moonraker and Absolute Truth, I think, at that point in time. And it's just incredible looking back sort of, almost 40 years ago where we are, yet we're only just past halfway. It's going to be amazing as we head into the same decade. You wouldn't think it's the same decade, how different they are when we get to them. But I think it's a great segue to move on to next week, where we are going to be talking about The Living Daylights. We are moving on to the Timothy Dalton era now, which is something, I say era, it's only going to be 2 weeks. It's something I think we've both been looking forward to. Yeah, and I'm so excited. I'm going to say as well, you guys in the chat love them. Really, 007 are going to be joining us for Living Daylights as well. So we're not going to be live next week. We are going to be pre-recording it. But obviously, if you've seen them on our videos, then you know that they are big Dalton fans. And once again, I'm going to say it's very exciting that you haven't seen the films. It's such an interesting dynamic for the later films because you're new to it. It feels like a sort of child being indoctrinated. I don't mean like a bad way, but it's
it is a little bit.
It's like everyone in the chat talking about like Golden Island. I was like, no, please stop. I was like, he hasn't seen it. I'm not going to comment that though, but
if someone's mentioned a spoiler, I've forgotten about it already, so it's totally fine. But I'm loving all the love for Roger Moore that we're getting right now, though. Just finally, final thoughts from everyone. From David, Roger was a very likable 007. Nikolai, he was his own Bond, and for that I love him. Not my favorite, but a real class act and an icon to many a generation. Absolutely. So as I say, it's going to be sad to see him go, but I am very intrigued to see what Dalton brings to the table with the role of James Bond. I think my immediate thoughts going into Living Daylights, knowing nothing about the film other than the equally awesome, but not quite as good as Duran Duran Aha song, The Living Daylights. It's just that this is going to be a more serious take on Bond, probably a more book accurate. And knowing that going in, I can prepare myself for it. It's not going to be like a whiplash shock going from Roger Moore. At least I hope it isn't. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It is sad to move on from that era, but I'm ready to move on. And as you said, only for 2 weeks. So I'm barely going to feel like I'm getting attached to Timothy Dalton's take on Bond, and then we'll be moving on to, well, your favorite, Brosnan. Anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Timothy Dalton first for the next 2 weeks. So that'll do it for our review on A View to a Kill. This has been a long one, and we thought it was going to be long. I don't know if we knew it was going to be this long, but you guys have been great, as always, commenting along. But if you are discovering this video after the live stream, let us know your thoughts on the film. What are your favorite Roger Moore Bond films? Anything related to his generation of Bond, please do let us know, whether you love or hate the movie. And it has been quite divided tonight. I think overall it's been positive. I think middle of the road for some people, and that's cool. We'll see what people think of the next one. I'm very excited. And of course, as we mentioned, we won't be live, but we'll have a video for you next Tuesday at exactly the same time, 8 p.m. Go on, George, click it.
There we go.
The Living Daylights, which is going to be Tuesday the 27th of July. It's happening. We're getting through them, though. The weeks keep ticking, and it's scary how quickly they're flying by. We're already past the halfway point, but don't worry, we've got plenty more James Bond content planned. Even after we've done all of the films, the rankings, we've got a lot more stuff planned. We're not going away anytime soon with it.
Yeah, I was about to say as a teaser what's to come. That's groovy. But aside from that, I'm going to bring up some of the pages you can find. So if you haven't subbed already, do hit that subscription button. It does help. You want to know when these videos come up. It is 8 p.m. every Tuesday, but hit that notification. You'll get the beep to your phone half an hour early just in case you're slightly busy and you've somehow forgotten. But our social medias, though, for even more reminders, is Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at cinema_savvy, letterboxd.com/cinema savvy, and of course, we have our link to the TeePublic store in that description below. But yeah, following what Chris said, there's a couple of things looking points because Loki is finished and I'm trying to preview what's next. I don't know what's next. We've got He-Man, I'm allowed to say, at some point this week. We've also got potentially a big film starring Adam Driver coming next week. But the main thing is that the cinemas are opening. There are new films coming out. And as well as that, there is James Bond to keep us going. So I want to thank everybody for watching at home. And we'll be sure to see you next week for The Living Daylights.
See you guys.